Good evening. I want to call the Monday, April the 8th, 2013 meeting of the Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission to order. If y'all will stand with us, please. Commissioner Rhonda Allen will lead our prayer and our pledge. Rhonda.
Bow with me, please. Heavenly Father, we are just so humbled that we can come before you in your presence and that we're allowed to serve. And we know that you appoint all leadership, Lord, and so we just pray for your wisdom, your guidance, and your discernment as we make decisions that affect our county citizens. Thank you most of all for your Son, Jesus Christ. It's in his name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Y'all call the roll, please.
Rhonda Allen. Here. Jim Averwater. Here. Veronica Buchanan. Here. Will Jordan. Here. Mike Cush. Craig Lynch. Pettis Reed. Here. Steve Sandlin. Here. Mike Vaught. Here. Jeff Phillips.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Gal. Codes Department report. David?
Mr. Chairman, the Building Codes Department report is on the table. Still having good activities in single-family dwellings and good numbers for March.
Second to look at that, and any questions? Thank you, David. Any items withdrawn or deferred? Doug?
No, sir. No items have been withdrawn nor deferred.
This time we'll begin our public hearings on rezoning request. Number one, the A item is Edgar Arnold, item 13-A006. Rezoning location is 3892 Shelbyville Highway. County Commissioner is Gary Farley. The site of the size is approximately 5.05 acres, tax map 136, parcel 42.02. Existing zoning is medium density residential. Proposed zoning is commercial services. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this piece of property is located along Shelbyville Highway. This property back in 2003 was rezoned to retail and wholesale trade with a conditional use permit to allow retail sales of farm machinery and equipment repair, mini warehouses, those kind of things. Nothing was ever really established on the property. An additional conditional use permit was granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals in 2005 to allow a landscape business, building, sales yard, those kind of things. Finally, last year there was a temporary fireworks tent that was approved for the property. However, due to the fact that the property was vacant when we were going through the comprehensive rezoning for the county, this property was rezoned to, sorry, the computer's locked, so just bear with me just a second here. Thanks. Craig's is too? His computer's out too. His computer's locked. Is your computer locked, you said?
He just sees what you said.
He said, okay, very good. Okay, there we go. But again, when we were going through the comprehensive rezoning, of course, as you recall, when we were looking at properties, we were looking at property use as well as zoning, tax information, those things. Ultimately, we decided that since the property was vacant, we should just zone it to residential use. Well, the applicant has come back since that time and has asked for commercial services zoning, which is fairly consistent with what was approved originally. You can see the property here. It's highlighted on the map before you. The property immediately to the south is zoned commercial services already, CS, which is what he's requesting. You can see across the street is the county's rock quarry. You'll see a subdivision to the west. To the north is property that's actually within the city limits. That property directly to the south is actually a bar and tavern. And again, the property to the north being in the city, most of that I believe is part of the Barfield Park complex. Just to kind of give you an idea, again, this is the comprehensive plan. You see it's within the general urban character area, and it's also along an urban arterial. This is just some pictures of the area in question. This is looking, I guess that'd be to the southeast, looking directly across the street, back to the northeast, directly north, going up 231, And this is back onto the property. Staff, I don't believe, has received any. I know I haven't spoke to anybody about this, but at this time I'll be happy to answer any questions. The applicant is present.
Questions for staff? Time, we'll declare the public hearing open, and if the applicant is here and would like to come forward, please.
My name and address. My name is Edgar Arnold. I live at 12304 Bradyville Pike, out in kind of southern Rutherford. But I've had this piece of property for about 11, 12 years, and I've developed it and had tenants over the period of time, like Mr. Doug said, but nothing been continuous. And to keep in accordance with the ordinance and the codes requirements, I had to go commercial. I've got a tenant that wants to put a fireworks stand there. Without that, I wouldn't be able to do it. So, any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Arnold? Thank you, Mr. Arnold. Appreciate it. Anyone else like to speak for or against this rezoning request? I see no one. At this time, we'll declare the public hearing closed, and we're open.
Well, this is right across the road from the county rock crusher. As Mr. DeMasi said, right beside a like piece of property is owned the same as we're proposed here with. So looks to me like it's a perfect fit to zone this as is requested. So I'll make a motion to approve, contingent upon all staff notes or whatever, if there are any.
Yeah, I think a motion to approve. There really aren't any staff comments.
Just
Motion to
motion to
approve.
approve,
Appropriate.
To approve and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Item B, Howard and Susan Wilson, item 13-A007, rezoning, location 6241 Browns Mill Road. County Commissioner is Jack Black. Site of the size is approximately 22.2 acres. Tax map 60, parcel 37. Existing zoning is medium density residential. Proposed zoning is agricultural residential. Doug?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you stated, this piece of property is located along Browns Mill Road. It's about 22 acres in size. This is an aerial of the property in question. Essentially, it's got a house on it, and it's also used for some agricultural purposes. The applicant's also indicated that his wife is looking to possibly do maybe as a possible wedding venue on the property. When he first approached us about this, really he had one of two options he could go. He could either try to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a special exception to do the wedding venue portion of what he was wanting to do. The agricultural portion really is still permitted. However, under the agricultural residential zone, those wedding venues and things like that are uses by right. So after some contemplation by the applicant, they've decided to go ahead and make application to zone the property to agricultural. The property directly across the street is already zoned agricultural. Most of the surrounding area besides that is just zoned for residential medium density. At the very corner, and it may be a little difficult to see on here on the map, but there's an existing store up here which is zoned commercial neighborhood, but the remaining of the property, with the exception of this right through here and out in this area, is zoned for agricultural use. Again, this is the comprehensive plan, what it shows in the area. It shows it as suburban character area, agricultural uses being consistent with that. This is looking directly onto the property. This is looking down Browns Mill Road, looking directly across the street. That'd be to the northeast. back up Browns Mill going toward Las Casas Pike. Once again, I don't recall that staff received any phone calls about this particular application. The applicants are present, and staff is recommending approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions of staff? None. At this time, we'll declare the public hearing open for item 13-A007. Would Mr. or Mrs. Wilson like to come forward?
Howard Wilson. I'm the applicant. I reside at 6241 Browns Mill Road, Las Casas. We made this application. The piece of property is a farm. We want it to stay a farm. My house is situated in such a way that you couldn't develop the piece of property probably if you wanted to, but this will, in one, just ensure that my kids don't ever do it, or if they do it, they're going to have to come up here and ask somebody to do it. And also, as Doug mentioned, my wife is considering a wedding venue, and I think that'd make it, this zoning would make that much more appropriate.
Questions for Mr. Wilson? Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak for or against this rezoning? Seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. And once again, we're open for questions, comments, or motions.
This is across the road for me. The zoning we have our farm in is AR, and they have a very, very nice place to do some weddings if Susan wants to, and it's completely in character with the neighborhood. So I make a motion to approve, subject to any staff comments if there are any.
Again, for the way that we handle the zonings now, just a motion to approve is appropriate.
To approve then.
Approve. And the second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Item C, Planning Department. Item 13-A008, rezoning, location 305 Double Springs Road. Commissioner Joe Frank Jernigan. Size of the lot is approximately 9.6 acres. Tax map 103. Parcel 27, existing zoning is medium-density residential. Proposed zoning is agricultural residential. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this property, as shown on the map, is along Double Springs Road, as well as frontage along John Bragg Highway. During the creation of the new zoning ordinance, the Planning Department accepted requests to voluntarily zone property to the new agricultural residential district. We had several takers. The applicants well, actually, the owners of the property, Planning Department's the applicants, did request timely that the property be rezoned to agricultural residential when we created the new zoning map. Unfortunately, for one reason or another, which I really can't explain, it did not make it onto the zoning map. So when we realized that, we called the applicants, or the owners of the property, asked them if they were still interested in that. They said that they were. So we are bringing this forward to correct the oversight that planning staff had in regards to this property. Basically, the property, he will continue to farm it. The past 3 years, he's rented the property to a gentleman to do a haunted woods and corn maze on the property in October. The Board of Zoning Appeals has approved that 3 different times, and we have had no complaints. It seems to be well received in the area. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions, comments for staff?
Forgive me, I meant to do the pictures here. This is looking onto the property here. Looking out John Bragg Highway as you're going toward Camden County. It's across the street. That's looking back toward Murfreesboro. And looking back onto the property. Thank you.
Questions or comments for staff? This time, we'll declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this rezoning, please come forward. I'm pretty much assuming that all these folks out here for the next item that's on our agenda. So
Yeah, I think you're correct with that, Mr. Chairman.
we'll declare the public hearing closed, and we're open for motions, questions, or comments. Motion to approve. Thank you, Craig. And a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Motion to approve carries. Item number D. Brian Carr, LoJack Enterprises Incorporated. Item 13-A009, rezoning. Location is Old Nashville Highway. Commissioner is County Commissioner Trey Gooch. See Trey out there, right in the middle. Site of the size is approximately 110 acres. Tax map 70, parcel 55-01. Existing zoning is medium density residential. Proposed zoning is heavy industrial.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this property is located along Old Nashville Highway. Directly across the street, you can see on the map here, this is the existing LoJack property, which is currently zoned heavy industrial, and this is the property in question. The property that in question tonight was used as a rock quarry until the early 1980s. It's been vacant since that time. Again, directly across the street is the existing LoJack. Well, they do several different activities on the property, but that's the existing property for the LoJack facility. The remaining property in the area is pretty much zoned predominantly for residential medium density use. There is a little bit of office professional, some institutional, and a couple of property zoned commercial services in the area as well. The applicants are proposing to create a recycling center and construction and demolition landfill on the property. Now, I know whenever we hear landfill, I think the first thing we think about is the landfill over on Jefferson Pike. This is a completely different class of landfill for what they're talking about. We're not talking household wastes, foodstuffs, anything like that. We're talking construction and demolition debris on this property, which could be asphalt, brick, drywall, lumber, shingles, those kind of things. Basically, what the applicants will do in association with Arrowhead Recycling would be to accept and sort the construction and demolition waste, with approximately 80 to 85% of that material being reused, the other 15 to 20% being placed in the existing quarry pits on the property. I'm not sure if this is coming up. Here we go. You can see the pits right through here. These are the existing pits that are on the property. So basically, whatever they could not use, they would be starting to fill these areas in right through here. Most of the activity will be on this part of the property in this area through here. On your tables and included with your agenda materials, there is a application booklet that they submitted. It goes into a lot more detail. I'm going to let the applicant's design engineer, Mr. Jamie Reed, go into more detail with that. Along with Jamie, there's a couple other folks here, Mr. Tony Groh and Ms. Tiffany Wilmot, that are here representing the applicants that can answer questions. Just a couple other things. The facility is proposed to be built in 2 phases. Access to the property, the main entrance, would be probably about in this area where you can kind of see there's an existing back entrance here to the LoJack facility, and there's an entrance right through here. It's pretty, and they're both gated off, but this would be the area that they'd look at as far as access to the property. As far as buffering is concerned, they would be required to do a Type 3 buffer yard around all the property lines, being that this is industrially zoned if it is approved, and the surrounding areas are pretty much zoned residential. They're proposing to go above and beyond that with a minimum 100-foot buffer, and quite frankly, they're trying to leave as much area undisturbed as they can. Most of the activity being up in these areas, very little activity being seen down in here. There's no access either proposed to Asbury Lane. Staff has received a number of phone calls about this particular application. The applicants also had a neighborhood meeting out in the area on April the 2nd that was very well attended, and from my understanding, also a fairly lengthy meeting, but had a lot of good questions being asked. There were a lot of questions about dust, noise, those kind of things. I will say that the applicants are going to address those, but regardless of whether or not they're addressed, there are performance standards in our zoning code now that provisions have to be made to handle the noise, dust control, those kind of things. So with that, that's just kind of a brief overview. Again, Jamie Reed is going to make a presentation. He's just going to kind of go through the book just generally, and then the other folks I alluded to will be a little more specific in the operations of the property. It might be appropriate to wait till they're all completed until asking any questions, just to get everything down. Plus, the folks, Mr. Grow and Ms. Wilmot, will have more detailed knowledge of the site than Mr. Reed will. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions at this point in time till after the applicant makes the presentation, if that's okay with everyone. So at this time, I'll declare the public hearing open, and would the applicant and or his or her representatives please come forward.
Excuse me.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jamie Reed with SEC. I'm going to go ahead and describe the design team. Tiffany Wilmot is the president of Green Business Consulting with specialty in construction and demolition debris recycling. There'll be myself, who's president of SEC, who will be the professional engineer and the professional surveyor of the project. We've also got Tony Grow involved. He's the professional geologist. We also have LoJack Enterprises Incorporated here. The owners, Don Chamber and J.D. Lowry, are here also, and Brian Carr with LoJack will be here. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and kind of briefly go through the book like Doug just alluded to, because I know you'll have questions later. So turning to page 1, kind of in the request up there, the proposed Arrowhead Recycling Center will provide for recycling, reuse, stockpile areas, sorting buildings, office buildings with parking lots, truck scales, recycle, concrete and asphalt crusher, and a C&D's disposal areas. Their main goal and vision here is to reuse, and recycle materials that would otherwise be thrown away and, of course, then ultimately placed in our landfills. Sheet number 2 is kind of the overall master plan. It shows where the proposed sorting building will be, the proposed impact crusher there that will crush asphalt and concrete being brought in. And on that drawing, I'll go ahead and kind of describe some of this drawing while we're looking at an overview of the site. The main entrance that we're going to enter this site, as far as I know everybody's concerned, one comment was traffic. The majority of the traffic is going to come off Southwest Broad Street. It'll go through the site, as they do now, through their existing site, over to their existing entrance onto Old Nashville Highway, over to their existing entrance into the 110 acres that we're talking about here. There's already 2 existing entrances there. So the majority of the traffic will just shoot right across. It's a high point in the road. It makes good sight distances either way you look. And on top of that, LoJack is also going to place a left turn lane coming down Old Nashville Highway to be placed at that entrance also, even though the majority of the traffic is going to be coming off Broad Street. While we're on traffic, also LoJack, and we mentioned the other night, dealing with the battlefield protection guys, and is the trying to coordinate with the state and TDOT in placing a interchange or a turn lane off of I-840 onto Old Nashville Highway. That's one of their long-term goals, is trying to get some of the traffic off on there for the battlefield and some of the residents out there. With this drawing also, there will be the rock crusher will be required to have stormwater runoff requirements to contain their water. You can see the little blue stormwater pond. We'll reuse that water. That water will be reused on site. So whatever's washed, when they spray and they wash to keep the dust down, they'll use that water, will be recycled, it'll drain back down into the pond. That water will be recycled back up. So everything here is reuse, recycle, going green type stuff. We're trying to, like Doug said, 85% of the material that's going to be brought in here will be recycled. That's their main goal. And 15% of it will be placed into the landfill once they get above the water table. And in order to do that, I'll let Tony discuss a little bit more of that, but that'll be more dirt and rock placed up with liners and stuff. But I'll let him go further into that. On the western side of the property up there, you see the sorting building. Kind of give you an idea that all the roads will be paved also to minimize any dust surrounding the areas. Okay, going to sheet number 3, kind of give a brief overview of the utilities and the topography and the right-of-ways on the property. Middle Tennessee Electric serves the site. CUD, we've met with CUD a couple of times on this, and there will be underground septic system for the couple of bathrooms that we'll have. We'll have a waste scale building that will have a bathroom in it, and then the sorting center, which you kind of see there's a couple of septic sites located on the western corners of the property. And then sheets 4 through 7 kind of are some overviews of aerial and on-site photos that I went out there and took to different views of the site where you can see the roads and different aspects along Asbury Road, and within the subdivision you can see where some of the some of the roads and stuff enter, and a couple of pictures of the existing site over there on LoJack. On over to sheet number 8, kind of gives an overview of the zoning map, kind of like Doug had up there. It showed heavy industrial existing now, and then the zoning of RM, medium residential, which was placed when the county rezoned. Of course, the whole county, but the LoJack site there got rezoned to residential medium, with a couple of commercial services just west, well, just south of there. Okay, sheet number 9 kind of goes through some of our development standards. I think I listed a few of them, but this project will be looking at serving basically the 4-county area: Davidson, Rutherford, Wilson, and Williamson County. Typically, you see a 30 to 40 mile radius of people bringing reused, recycled stuff to be reused. Typically, that's the radius of the sites that makes it economical to bring the material in. The second item here is the hours of operation. The crusher facility, we're looking at running Monday through Friday from 6 to 4, and the recycle center Monday through Saturday from 6 to 6. Existing site is currently a highly regulated state operation, a permit monitored through TDEC for an air pollution permit. They have an existing one now on their existing site over there. With this proposed sorting building and the jaw crusher and the scales building, they're looking at creating approximately 10 to 15 jobs. Like I said earlier, all the driving aisles will be a minimum of 22 feet wide for two-way heavy-duty truck traffic and paved to provide a dustless surface. The entrance way station will also be constructed of brick, stone, or faux stone, or some equivalent of masonry product. The rock crusher will be placed in an area to buffer noise from the surrounding residential properties. The final stock areas will also act as a buffer to noise the dense 100-foot tree buffer around the properties. In addition to dust suppression, water spray will also be used to control dust at the crusher. The sorting building in the area will also have various sorting piles. Doug alluded to some of them earlier: asphalt, concrete, brick, block, metal, drywall, shingles, ceiling tile, etc. Like Doug also alluded to earlier, 80 to 85% is our goal, with 15% material placed in the C&D disposal or / quarry. Sheet number 10 kind of goes into the trucks, anticipated trucks a day. We're looking at approximately 50 trucks a day, with approximately 200,000 yards a year to meet our 85% recycle. Also, prior to the site plan, of course, to meet Doug's and the county's new stormwater stuff, we'll have to design a thorough design of stormwater management facility here to comply, including and ensuring adequate water quality and quantity. To give you an idea of the buffer area, right now the Arrowhead facility is looking at 46.5 acres that is just the 100-foot buffer around the sites. Gives you an idea of the 110, how much of it basically going to be buffered. And then all of the existing landscape located along Old Nashville Highway and the 100-foot buffer will remain in place, except at the entrance of Old Nashville Highway, where they'll construct their access drives and stuff. But they will place new landscaping and stuff of any of the trees that's torn down and stuff at their new entrance. Also, on sheet 11, like Doug alluded to earlier, we're working on this in concurrence to a couple of phases. Phase 1 will include the construction of the stormwater facilities, turn lanes, the crusher, the office building, access drives, truck scale, and landscaping. Phase 2 will include the sorting building itself. And they're looking at the anticipating starting date of about 120 days after completion of the zoning process. Sheet number 12 is just another site plan view like we looked at first. Sheet number 13 is an example of a weigh station building. It's not necessarily going to be either of these three, but I just wanted to show it's going to be basically a 30 by 30, roughly around 900,000 square feet, with a weigh scale, typically a 70-foot weigh scale, next to it so they can weigh the debris coming in, construction debris, and then monitor that. It'll be, of course, like I stated earlier, completely of brick, hardy board, stone, or faux stone. Building heights will comply with the current county zoning. The weigh station will have approximately 2 to 4 employees working at it, of the 10 to 15. And also, that building will have extensive landscaping around that to meet the county's landscaping ordinance. Sheet number 14 is an example of the sorting building that we're looking at. It's a going green type building. The light shines through the material. It's a noise barrier type, also this type of fabric, but it also lets the light shine through without using electricity during the day when most of their hours are going to be in operation. That's about it on that. Number 15, go to number 15 of the proposed building one last time. That's an example of the weigh station in the building there also. Sheets numbers 16 and 17, I'll let Tiffany allude to. This is kind of describing how the debris is sorted, the material being placed and dumped from the trucks. And then sheet number 17 is kind of going over some of the recycled process, the drywalls, the metals, the wood, how it's pulverized and concrete and stuff. But Tiffany will kind of allude on some of that. Number 18 is kind of just showing some of the landscape ordinance here. Of course, the whole site is basically evergreens out there now, but in order to meet the county's new subdivision zoning ordinance and stuff, we'll have heavy, extensive landscaping around the new buildings to add some more color out there. Not that you'd see it from the road because we're not taking any of the trees down up front or around the buffer. Sheet number 19 and 20, I'll let Tony talk about. This is some of the quarry cross sections of how it's going to be filled and placed. And then sheet number 20 is also where we did, a comment was the noise. We did a noise study with the crusher, which is rated at 80 dBs. And we've run tests on that. I'll let Tony describe the test taken on that. Last page of it. Sheet number 21 is just describing the heavy-duty pavement areas. It shows the county's long-range transportation plan, where all the turn lanes and stuff are, where the proposed stuff are through the county at the nearby. But if you look on Broad Street, that's the main traffic travel way on this, and everything's going to be entering. Majority of the traffic is going to be entering from there. With that, I will introduce Tiffany Wilmot with Wilmot Incorporated.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Wilmot with Wilmot Incorporated. I am a sustainability consultant. I've been in business since 1994, and we do sustainability consulting, specializing in construction and demolition recycling. We've done a lot of work through the years. Started out on a project with LP Field, where when all those buildings came down in downtown Nashville, we took those buildings and recycled them right on the site in downtown Nashville, and we recycled 80,000 tons of material, put it back on the site, reused it right there, and saved the city money, and also saved them the air quality problems of trucks coming in and out with debris, taking things like concrete out and then bringing materials back in. We were able to reuse things on the site. We're currently doing that with the convention center, the new convention center in Davidson County, where we're also crushing downtown in a very highly trafficked urban area. So that's just to say that a lot of people are doing it. This is very common. It happens in lots of places all over the United States, and it's becoming more and more common here in Tennessee. One reason it's becoming common is that people are realizing that there's no reason to take materials that you've already taken out of the earth and then throw them away when you can reuse them and take that embodied energy that's there and use those materials. So when LoJack came to our company a couple years ago, and I have to say we were the first company they came to. So they came to us first to find out how can we do this in an environmentally sound way. And through the whole process, that's been their goal. So what we've tried to do is figure out what's the greenest way they can do all this. How do we leave as many trees? How do we site things in a proper way so that it's a win for everybody all around? The materials that we'll take in are things like, and you'll see in the pictures in that booklet, our metal, which is of course highly recycled. It's been recycled since the 1800s. Asphalt, which is the most recycled material in the United States, and that's the key to this, is that we're able to take that material and recycle it on our site and use it as a raw material. And with most construction demolition debris recycling sites, they have to sell that material and send it off. We'll be able to use it right on the site. There will be things that we can't use, and those things will be recycled. So metals will be recycled. We'll take wood and turn that into mulch, probably send that to different areas in the county, wherever it's needed. We could pelletize the wood. Asphalt goes obviously back into the process. Concrete goes back into the process. And plastics will be sent off to be recycled. So that'll be the bulk of it. A lot of sometimes you get carpet in there, and we'll send that to Dalton, Georgia, and that'll be put right back into carpet to make new carpet. So there are a lot of materials that you'll see that you don't see in what's called MSW, municipal solid waste. Municipal solid waste is what the Middle Point landfill is. That's a Class 1 landfill. That's not what this is going to be. This is going to be construction materials that are inert, they're odorless, there's not going to be food waste in it, so that's not putrescible. And that's a key factor that it's, and that's why it makes it so recyclable as well. They say that construction demolition debris is 97% recyclable. We're not going to aim for that at first, but we're going to start with 85%, which is pretty high. And so if you ever look at MSW waste, that's more recyclable, about 25%. We're looking at those really high numbers. And we want to protect the wildlife and the plants that are already there. We've had the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency come out and look at that and tell us what areas we need to be careful of. And then we're just going to take the few areas that we need and put some roads in and then start our recycling. I think that's... The only other thing I wanted to mention was that currently we are recycling asphalt on the site now, and it's working really well. We have a crusher there, and so we're wanting to just continue doing what we're already doing and expand it to allow other materials to come into the county, this county landfill site, which will be an asset, and 100-year plus asset to the county, because there'll be a place for people to bring their construction and demolition materials, and that will be besides helping the county from a property tax and sales tax standpoint, it will help secure a place for us to have to send things to for quite a while. We don't expect this to be filled anytime soon. Our current estimates are 120 years, so it'll be way beyond my lifetime. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question for, it's Tiffany, right?
Yes, Tiffany Wilmot.
Do y'all in this business now then? I mean, you're doing this somewhere?
I'm a consultant, and I do consulting only. We don't have trucks or anything, so we help other businesses to do this.
Okay, but this is y'all are the ones who are going to be doing this then, correct? Or no? You're just still a consultant?
I'm just a consultant,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
I will not have any trucks or anything.
Okay. I just had some questions about the water that's in these areas now, in these borrow pits or whatever. And then, you know, like the asbestos and all the other bad stuff that's in a lot of these other materials and everything, and how you're going to handle that. And how is that not going to get into our water table or the water system? And then the water that's in these borrow pits now, you're going to have to get rid of it somehow, I guess.
Right. I'm going to, first I'm going to defer most of that to Tony Grow. But Mr. Sandlin, I can answer this, and that's I'll let Tony talk about the water because he's our geology expert. Just something to know is that we don't want any hazardous waste, and we will not allow hazardous waste to come in. So that's not something that we want or would ever be looking for. And we're going to be testing that 3 times. We're going to test it on the front end when it first comes in with handheld devices, and then we'll test it 2 more times as we go on. Asbestos is something that most demolition and construction contractors don't want. If they find any asbestos on a site, they will call in they'll cease and desist, get off the property, and call in hazardous waste people to abate that because they're not permitted to do that. So they don't want to have it. We don't want to have it. We wouldn't want it in our home. We wouldn't want to bring it on our property.
That's the point with these C&D sites. I mean, the folks that abide by the rules and regulations, we're not really worried about them. It's the folks that, hey, I'm going to tear down this house and you know, for X amount of dollars or whatever, or a building or whatever. And that's where you're going to get some of these suppliers, unless they're approved suppliers, and they're going to be supplying to you all the time. But it's really basically whoever drives in the gate, right?
It's whoever drives in the gate to a point. I mean, we can, as a private institution, we won't have to allow anyone to come in. And if we find that anyone does something that's illegal, or we find anything in their trucks, we're not going to let them come back. So yeah, it wouldn't be something we would want to do. And as a matter of fact, I used to be a demolition contractor. I sold my business in 2001, and as a demolition contractor, we were very adamant about keeping asbestos out because we couldn't, any lead-based paint, anything like that, we would cease and desist, call the owner and say, let's get somebody else in there to abate it.
That was going to be my question: is what other things are you going to test for besides asbestos? I was concerned about lead-based paint. What other things are you going to test for?
I'll let Tony answer that because he's our hazardous waste expert. I'm just the recycling person. Are there any other recycling questions that I can answer while I'm here?
I may have one more. Is there any incentive for contractors to choose to come to you over going to a traditional C&D landfill?
Well, the current landfill that's already there is becoming full, so there's that. But we may encourage people to bring loads that are clean, what we call clean loads. So if they just have asphalt or concrete, which is the materials we really want, we may give them a lower price for that material. But that would be one reason we would want them to come to us. All right, now I'd like to introduce Tony Grow, who can talk about the hazardous and the geological materials.
Okay, my name is Tony Grow. I'm an environmental consultant, professional geologist in the state of Tennessee. I've been doing permitting for quite some time throughout Tennessee and throughout the southeast United States. Got my start in the Department of Defense, handling highly hazardous waste, hazardous contaminated sites, hazardous waste landfills, and as far as permitting, I've permitted several landfills, Class 1 and then Class 2. This particular site has several environmental issues associated with it. Environmental requirements, you have air, okay, particulate emissions is the main thing. The next thing is you have disposal of the construction debris. And I wish I had a pointer. You don't have a laser pointer, do you? Okay. But it's disposal of the debris. The next thing is noise. Everybody has a problem with noise. We got to address noise. All these things have to be addressed. They cannot be just thrown out there and we all go on our happy, merry way. The residents that live on the western and northern side have an equal voice in how this all gets designed and how it gets put together. That's the reason we had the meeting with the residents, to bring them in on the front end of this project to figure out what their concerns are so we can make sure they're addressed. The air and the noise seems to be the biggest issues with this project. They can be addressed with sound suppression, and what we do it with is we do, and I'm going to start with the noise issues, is that the jaw crusher is in the, I wish I could show you where that is, but it's in the bottom of that L, or that corner. Go on down a little more, Doug. A little further. Right there is where the jaw crusher is going to be located. I'm sorry. Yeah. The jaw crusher is right where that arrow is located, a little bit south of that. And what we're going to do, the 100-foot buffer around the property, it goes continuously around except where the quarries are, will essentially suppress the sound. We're also building a berm going this way and that way to keep the sound from going into the neighborhood. And okay, as far as vibrations go, the equipment is mounted and it has sound suppression, not sound suppression, vibration suppressant mountings where it's mounted, okay? Usually this equipment has big rubber cushions to keep vibrations, okay? So you don't actually feel that vibration in the ground where you live, okay? But as far as the noise goes, we'll have a berm that kind of goes in an L-shaped pattern to suppress the noise. And we did some noise studies in this area, and the noise actually dissipates very quickly down to about 10 dB or 10 BAs to the property line. And then when it goes north, it actually dissipates by the time it gets to about 3/4 across to where the opening of the property is. So as far as the noise, I think that's on slide, on page 20. It actually shows the jaw crusher had a dBA of 75, and as you go out and get halfway across the property, it drops down to 55, and essentially by the time it gets to the noise buffer area, it drops down even further. As far as any noise issues, anybody have any questions? Yeah.
You've got it going.
Wait, just no questions from the public at this particular time.
All right.
Just from the commission.
Okay.
So going north on the noise thing, but going left or going west into the, like, Reynolds Drive right there, Augie Court, all this, I just kind of did a little scale on paper, so it would just revert back over. Would that be the same?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Actually, the noise would be diverted up because of the berm, the soil berm that's around in an L-shaped pattern would divert the sound up. The area where this equipment's being located is in a topographic low point on the property. It actually drops down. When you're on the edge of the property, the western edge of the property and the southern edge of that berm, it actually drops about 20 feet, okay? So the jaw crusher is going to actually be in a lower part of the property, not on a hill. And so when you put the soil berm up and with the trees, the 100-foot buffer, you had very much an adequate sound suppression or any dissipation of sound.
In comparison to the rock crusher right across the crusher right across the road, what would that be?
As far as the sound, well, it's 75 dBA for this jaw crusher. It's the same type of jaw crusher they're using across the road.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. So this right here is going to divert to, would you say, 10 dBA or something once it...
About 10, yeah, about 10 dBA. Now, as far as on the other side of the tree line with the residential area, it'll drop down to 6 or 5. And what we like to do is, as we develop the noise requirements for, or the sound suppression for the jaw crusher equipment, is we want to involve, of course, the county in determining how far down we can get it. We're looking at other sound suppression equipment to go around the jaw crusher to bring it down even further, not just to leave it wide open, but what can we do to suppress it right there at the jaw crusher to bring it down from 75 to maybe 40 before we were even 30 feet away from the piece of equipment. On the air side, the jaw crusher and the operations on the facility, Rutherford County and Nashville are in a non-attainment zone for air quality. Well, particular emissions, PM, is separated into PM5 and PM10. And the requirements on the air permit for LoJack are very strict. You cannot have dust migrating from the site, immediate from the equipment. It can't be 30 feet away. It has to be right to the equipment. If it's inadequate, then we will get fined. LoJack will get fined a substantial amount of fines per day for violating their air permit. So the air permit requirements for there on that site are very, very strict. And they'll have to do monitoring once a month for the dust suppression. So there's like 5 or 6 different things you have to do, besides water. The activities itself and things like that have to be well governed. Standard operating procedures have to be developed for operating the jaw crusher and all the equipment. And in the standard operating procedures, they have to dictate meeting the environmental requirements. Okay, they just can't just operate the equipment and not have and just try to barely meet the permit requirements. And the permit requirements for PM are very, very strict as far as dust suppression. On the disposal of construction and demolition debris, if you go to slide 19. If you notice behind me on, I'll reverse this mic here. And Doug, I need your help here. The top quarry, one of the very most northern one, keep going north to the right. Right above the arrow, keep the arrow, it's right there. Right above the arrow is where the soil has been added to the quarry. It's actually been, all the light tan area that you see has been filled in so far over the past several years. That is the first quarry that we're going to fill. What we have to do...
If I could just interrupt real quick. This area you're talking about, just so everybody understands, this is on the existing LoJack property that's currently zoned industrial that's accessed off of Broad Street. This isn't on a property we're talking about down here.
Yes.
This is the existing. Okay.
Well, reason I'm bringing that up first is because of the timing. We have 3 quarries, and which one are we going to fill first? We're going to fill the one that's most northern, okay? It'll take 42 years to fill up that quarry, the top one. It'll take another 30 to fill the middle one, and probably another 40 to fill the most southern one. Okay, so we're talking, like Tiffany said, about 120 years to fill that quarry. So we already started with filling the quarry up with soil and concrete, inert material in the top quarry. What we have to do on slide 19, and I'm sorry that the public doesn't have a copy of this, but we can talk about it later. The quarry itself has a water level, and the water level fluctuates. What we have to do is we have to design this quarry or this disposal area to meet state Class 2 landfill requirements. And what we have to do is we have to fill up, and the liner for the landfill, it's a plastic liner, and it has to be at least 15 feet above or 10 feet above the top of the water level, and that's the worst at the flood stage. If you're at flood stage at like we had in March, if the water level is that high, we have to go 10 feet above that. It so happens that this quarry right here is actually have a lot of rock has to be prepped before we actually put the liner in. So it's going to take a long time to fill that whole quarry up. But we can go ahead and start a immediate cell of construction debris right north of that arrow, and we can start putting it in right now, and just kind of go across and develop the cells as we put in the debris. There's strict requirements for a construction demolition landfill. We have to have monitoring wells around the landfill, and then on top of that, it has to be lined, and then also capped at the very end. What we plan to do is after it's filled 40 years from now, it'll be capped, and then develop the land into something like a greenway area or some type of park. That's kind of where we're headed in the very end.
Let me just clarify what you just said. I'm just wanting to stay on the same track. The brown tan area right there, just that part is going to take 40 years to fill?
Yeah, that first quarry will take 40 years to fill.
Not that, oh, you're talking about the whole quarry, not just the tan part.
The whole first quarry. The tan part is where you see where LoJack has already filled in part. So probably about a fourth of the first quarry has been filled so far with sediment to put the rock above the water table. Okay.
And you're still going to compact that, line it, and then put the stuff on there, and so
Yes.
That's going to start you off. So how many, at 40 years, just throwing it out there, I'm just kind of amazed at these numbers. How many truckloads is that? That's going back across the street.
Yeah,
because
I think we
you're
figured
getting
out,
it over
10
here.
truckloads a day? Yeah, 15 truckloads a day. 50? Okay, 50 truckloads a day.
50 truckloads a day.
Yeah. Yeah, 15% of that, yeah.
All right, in the site itself, you're going to get 50 loads a day. You're
Well,
assuming. And so
the
then
reason why I've gotten mixed up on that is because 50 truckloads come into the site with the construction debris. 15% of those truckloads will go back across into that landfill of stuff that has to be disposed of, okay? Yeah, which is our goal. And I'll be glad to answer any questions about the landfill as far as, there's several classes of landfills. This is probably the least, what do you call it, environmentally impacting type of landfill. But still, the requirements are the same. The state has to put the same kind of requirements as they do on a municipal waste landfill, okay?
I have a question just to ask you. You know, when I first saw this, it was quite intriguing to see how this was done and whatever. Now, I don't have an engineering degree or whatever. I do have a plant and soil science degree, but it made me want to find out more about this. So I started doing some looking, and, you know, I did find some things on reclaiming quarries and planning for that. And of all places, I found it in the United Kingdom, where they've been doing it for many, many years.
Yeah.
And one thing they suggested in their planning to do that was environmental impact statements. Has anything been looked at there, or has there been environmental assessments done out there?
One part of this thing that hasn't been done yet for this project is there will be a hydrogeologic study done. The hydrogeologic study looks at the impact of that landfill that will have on groundwater resources and surface water resources to the environment. It tells us whether a landfill can be put there or not. Now, TDEC, the Tennessee Department of Environment Conservation, really scrutinize any development of any landfill, so they will be going over this with a fine-tooth comb, and it will go through a lot of scrutiny before we can actually get it approved. There's a permit application that goes in, gets put together and gets submitted. It takes a year and a half for that permit to be approved by TDEC. So we're talking probably about 2 years, 2.5 years before we can start developing the landfill at all for that first quarry. Okay.
So really, before you can ever start developing that, you'll have to get that environmental, or that from TDEC?
Yes. And there's also an ecological survey, and a part of that will be an socioeconomic analysis of the area. So there's several studies that have to be done prior to submitting the application to the state. We have to show that it's going to benefit the state, and all the environmental issues that we have are met and are addressed.
So we'll have to get that clearing there, because as I was reading this, and this was put out, if you ever want to go look at it, several hundred pages long. It's Sheffield University there in England. But one reason that they started developing those quarries over there, or trying to fill them in or whatever, is because of residential encroachment out there and trying to take care of those. But I think that's pretty important to us too, because, you know, evidently this is the first as we're doing here, and we want to get it right to begin with.
Yeah.
And that water table is very important to all of us, and we want to see it's right. And I'm glad to hear that we have to go through that process before it's ever approved.
Yep, sure do.
I have a couple of questions about the liner itself, because that's our protection measure to make sure that nothing penetrates that to contaminate the water.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you monitor that the liner is doing its job, and how would you detect a breach if one occurred?
Well, one thing about the liner, it's a secondary protection measure. Everybody thinks it's the primary, but it's actually secondary. We have to construct a clay monolithic layer underneath the liner, and that is probably about 8 feet thick. It has to be made out of, not clay from around here, it has to be brought in. And once that's built and compacted and tested, after it's been built, then we have to test it and to make sure that it meets geotechnical requirements. After that's done, then we put the liner in. After the liner's put in, then we put something on top of that as well. And we also monitor any leachate that may be in the landfill above the liner. We monitor that to see if anything's coming out. So, but the materials that are in this landfill are, you're talking about construction demolition debris. It's not like a municipal solid waste. We won't have gas methane monitoring system or anything like that. The monitoring wells they have around that we have to construct, it's required of every landfill. Monitoring wells are required of every landfill is in order to determine that if we have, for instance, any contamination, groundwater coming from around the area, where is it coming from? Are we contributing to it, or is it contributed by somebody else? I don't expect to see any problems from this landfill as far as groundwater contamination, because a lot of the design and building into this will be fairly extensive. And a lot of things that you see coming in a construction demolition landfill, it's not volatile organic compounds. It's not, if it was asbestos was deposited in there, asbestos, in order to get out into the groundwater, would have to dissolve. Chrysotile and those kind of materials do not dissolve. They're particulates. They're long. In fact, asbestos is a long, glass-like mineral. And for it to migrate through the groundwater, it does not migrate through groundwater. The main concern with asbestos is the airborne nature of it, okay? If we got asbestos out on this site, what we'd be worried about is the asbestos getting out, okay, floating over into the neighborhood and people breathing it on a regular basis. And so that's where the biggest concern with asbestos is. The reason why asbestos is especially monitored when it goes to landfill, it has to be bagged, is to keep the workers there from being exposed to airborne asbestos while they compact it. It has to be covered nightly, okay? So asbestos, when people think about asbestos being a water contaminant, no, it is not a water contaminant. Please do not think it is a water contaminant, because it's very hard for a long cylindrical mineral to weave in and out of the groundwater porosity to make it to groundwater. It's physically impossible. So
what is the highest risk of contamination? Like what could possibly come in? Like, for example, I asked a little while ago about lead-based paint. You know, what other things are you going to test for to make sure that you don't well, inadvertently bring in other contaminants?
Well, one thing about it, there's 3 or 4 ways we're going to look at the loads when they come in. And I did this at a site in Nevada where we had a lot of construction debris coming in. We had to look at everything that came in. And we had an XRD, XRF, handheld unit. Anything was painted, we had to scan it. And it tells you in about 5 seconds where there's lead-based paint. Okay? If lead-based paint was disposed of in the rock quarry, you would have to have some other chemicals in there to leach out the lead-based paint out of the wood. Okay? So that means you've got to have an acidic environment. It's very hard to have an acidic environment in a construction demolition landfill because you don't have the waste or debris to cause an acidic environment. And over many, many years, the water that's in the landfill will actually become acidic, but it takes many, many years. But for lead to leach out of paint, it takes a very, very long time. And if you're talking about if you let little bit of lead paint go into that landfill, it's going to take a lot to cause a groundwater problem. You would have to essentially let everything, all the lead paint, all the wood you get that's painted, and try to fill up as much lead paint in there to get any kind of thing noticing. If you got 50 loads and 10% of those loads has lead-based paint, you're probably not going to have a problem. Okay, that's from a risk standpoint.
So will you be accepting the lead-based paint, or if you detect it, will you be turning it away?
It'll be turned away. It'll be turned away. What we have to do is have to scan it and turn it away. Now, the thing what we did was that people that brought stuff like that would be fined. They would not be allowed to put waste there again, but once they are found out about it, TDEC finds out about it, they won't be allowed to put waste anywhere, and essentially will lose their license. So they're very particular about doing it. Now, you have some of the organizations out there or some companies that don't care what they're hauling. And when they're on the way to take something, this stuff's just falling off the back of the truck. I've seen that, seen it 1,000 times. But when they get there, we pretty much tell about one kind of operator who's kind of shoddy and when he's not. We'll be able to tell when they drive up whether it's covered or when it's not covered. But it'll be visually inspected. The XRF unit will pick it up. We also have VOC detectors, okay? And they will check for VOCs and anything we have there, paint cans, anything that may smell. We'll probably pick it up pretty quick. And then asbestos. Asbestos is pretty easy to identify. Somebody brought the fact about gypsum wallboard imported from China, and it contains asbestos in it. We'll be able to predict that. We'll be able to pick that up pretty quick. And we'll have a way to test for asbestos on site as we go along.
So will you track each load? Like you'll know exactly who's bringing in what, and if you should find something that wasn't detected initially, you'll be able to trace it back to that load?
Every load will be logged. Every person comes in, they'll have to put their name, phone number, that's their load, and it goes in. And then the next one, it'll be serial. They don't be dumped all together in one load. It'll all be like processed in a serial fashion.
Well, I had a question. You said you're going to fill the quarry that's between the two roads first, the one farthest north, I'm thinking this from here. And it's going to take 40 years to fill that one. That property's already zoned heavy industrial up there. That's appropriate zoning, I take it. Is there not room on that track to put your sorting building and spend 40 years before you ever even have to cross the old Nashville Highway? Because, I mean, I'm not trying to get applause here. I'm just wondering what's the point in going across the road all those years if you could put it up there, and then once you get a track record and do a good job there, then come back and do the next phase. That's just what I'm thinking here.
Yeah, from what I understand.
I apologize to the chairman. I wasn't trying to start an applause match.
I know you're not. It's a good question. It really is a good question. I think the real estate on that side, as far as the footprint of the equipment, makes it impossible because you have the sorting of it and you also have the jaw crusher and everything, and you have to have places to put the material while you're in the middle of recycling and moving and sorting, things like that. And I'm pretty sure the real estate on that side, there's not enough room to do that. And it impacts that operation, which is a totally different operation than what they're talking about recycling. And I'm pretty sure they looked at it before and thought the easiest way to do this without trying to go and incorporate the bottom part of the property. The reason why I bring up starting the landfill, the north part, is to show you the phase. 40 years from now, we'll be starting on the second quarry. So that's how long it'll be before we start the second one. And we'll have to go through permit renewal and permit redesign as we go along with TDEC on the second and third. It won't be the end.
Well, let me ask you this. On page 20 in here, you're talking about the noise. And of course, I can see your buffer, and I can see your the decimal levels there within the area that you have there. But say the folks out here at Fawnwood or out there on Majors Drives or whatever, what are they actually going to hear that's going to be different from what they hear now?
Well, they'll probably still hear the train that's kind of north of them as well. Because I know one lady said, I want to still hear my train. I don't want to hear it. Don't stop hearing the train. But what they'll hear more than anything, I don't know if they'll pick up anything at that location because of the suppression itself. We're going way and beyond of what it takes to suppress a noise from this location. If anybody's ever been to California or been in those high density areas where they put a wall up between the interstate and a home, you can actually not hear much of the traffic at all being in your home. And what I like to do is those folks that are very interested, I'd like to take you and go and look at what this looks like and what it actually sounds like, and get you actually involved in designing that sound suppression for this, okay? It's a concern for you. It's a concern for me. We need to address it, okay? We don't need to design this thing later on a few months down the road. We're having problems, and people can't sleep at night. People wake up at 6 o'clock when they're supposed to wake up at 8 because they got a different shift. So what I want to do is make sure we address that, and we can address it. It can be addressed. Don't think it can't be. It can be.
One quick follow-up. You mentioned in here that maybe the recycling would happen in counties that are kind of contiguous to Rutherford County. One of the things that was a sore spot for the landfill out in the Walter Hill area, we were bringing in garbage from as far away as Michigan, and some of it seemed to be hazardous at times, and it rubbed some residents the wrong way because we're importing garbage. And I know this is not garbage, but just tell me about the potential of it becoming far-reaching other than counties contiguous to Rutherford.
The only impact I would see, if you had a Class 1 landfill, like a municipal waste landfill or hazardous waste landfill, then the demand for going here would be great. As far as the demand for going here, it probably increase very much if you had another storm like we had, tornado activity. Then the county area would want to go here. It gets to a distance. When you're hauling construction demolition debris, I forget the number of miles, but after you go so many miles, it's not cost effective. So you're going to go to the next nearest one. There's plenty of construction debris landfills in the state of Tennessee to take this debris somewhere. The reason why this was located in this area is because it is in a highly growing area, and we felt like we can really take advantage of and divert a lot of the waste going into the landfill here in Rutherford County and recycle that material and keep it from going to landfill. It keeps you from having to build a landfill sooner, another landfill, solid waste landfill down the road. There's no sense of filling a landfill. And that's where the main benefit of this whole thing is that if you can divert the waste out of here, out of that landfill, and you can put it into a construction demolition landfill, you keep it from going into a landfill that contains a lot of municipal garbage. And we don't need to have a lot of municipal solid waste landfills. So we're trying to minimize as much as we can.
Question,
We're
Mr.
talking
Chairman.
about the.
Oh,
You were
excuse me.
talking about the different checks that you guys are going to be doing.
Yes.
Now, who will be checking you guys, and how many times will be checking?
It's required. The TDEC regulations require that compliance inspections be done. Okay, there's inspection logs that have to be filled out for TDEC. They do a quarterly review. They come in and look at your operations, look and see how you're doing. They look at the logs you're doing, and they only do surprise. They also do surprise site visits. They just show up one day and see how things are going. They also listen to complaints from residents, and they'll go investigate when there's a complaint. Okay, so if somebody sees dust or they says I can't sleep, then you contact TOSHA, and TOSHA, that's Tennessee Occupational Self-Hate. They will come out and investigate it as well. So there's different ways to checking and balancing as far as the site goes that they're available to people as far as concerns they may be there.
So there are going to be several people checking?
Yes, yeah. This will require at least 4 or 5 people checking all the time to make sure that the loads coming in don't have material in them, but also the landfill operation itself has to have 3 or 4 people monitoring and managing that continuously. So before they put the debris into the construction demolition landfill, they have to check it again. So it's along the process.
Outside of what you guys are doing, you're saying there's others up to 4, you saying?
Yeah, yeah.
By the site?
Yeah, yeah. So we'll be checking before it's materials brought in at the waste station, in the process itself of sorting, and then on the back end when we send it back out to the construction demolition landfill.
Typical day be like for that crusher that you're proposing? What type of material would come in? What would you crush? What would you do with it? And is there any way that this crusher could be used as a backup from their other rock quarry that's over there?
Yeah, the rock crusher or the jaw crusher is for crushing material that can be fined down. It won't be used for crushing, I'd say, wood and stuff like that. More of anything, it's concrete material. I'd say almost all of it's concrete, isn't that right? Yeah. Yeah, asphalt is breaking that down to smaller particles so it can be used. So the jaw crusher, the noise of the jaw crusher is going to be also dependent on the material going through it. Will concrete be going through 100% of the time? Probably not. I imagine asphalt going through is probably a little quieter than concrete. So there's different ways we can do the operation of the plant to where the noise of the plant can actually be during the middle of the day or something like that. So, we're not crushing rock, just asphalt. Yeah, just asphalt.
So you crush this concrete. What do you do with it after you crush it? Where does it go? What happens to it?
It gets reused. Yeah, it gets part of the reuse. And I think 100% of that's reused, if I'm not mistaken.
Sold to someone and recycled.
Well, the concrete's got steel in it, most of it. So I mean, you've got to deal with that. Whatever. I guess it may bust out of it. I don't know. I've got a couple of questions, though, Mr. Chairman. I didn't mean to interrupt you on your.
If we get into some of the operations of recycled material, I'm going to have to divert back to Tiffany.
Okay, no, I'm back on this other.
So
I'm really concerned with, how much water is in these things and then the contamination of the water table and stuff. I don't know if it's spring-fed. Do you know if it's spring-fed, or is this some of this other environmental testing that you've got to do?
that's part of the hydrogeologic study. I will tell you in general sense that the groundwater under the site flows from a southeast to a northwest fashion. And actually comes out at two springs on the river.
So
that's
it's coming
above.
in from the top and going down. So y'all gonna have to divert it some way up on top of the.
Water's coming. It's flowing underground.
Oh, flowing under. Okay.
Flowing underground. The surface water on the site. I'm sorry, the microphone. I'm playing with this microphone. The surface water on the site actually flows away from the site, but then most of this area is sinkholes. So a lot of the water flows right into the ground on the site. We have to have strict stormwater requirements for the site. We have to do a stormwater monitoring in the area of the jaw crusher as well as the area of the recycling area. So that all has to have its own recycling stormwater plan to take care of that. But
and once everything's in, everything's approved and all that sort of stuff, you've got cover that has to go on, dirt cover. With C&D side, I think our county side, you don't have to cover every day. You can cover once a week, I believe, was the requirement then. I don't know if it is now or not, but is that right?
No, we probably cover it every day.
Where are you going to get the dirt?
Probably, I don't know where I can get the dirt. As far as the geology standpoint, as far as where we can cover dirt from, that would be up to
the dirt's
LoJack.
not coming on site here. It's not coming off of on site, right?
Well, I know that through the debris that we bring in, some of the material can be converted to cover material for the landfill. Not the clay, but cover material.
That's what I'm talking about, on the cover that you're going to cover every day.
Yeah,
Where
that
you
can
going
be
to get
used
that
for
dirt?
recycled materials.
We're looking for dirt. The people next door, doing the landfills looking for dirt. I mean, it's hard to find.
Yeah.
They're out.
Yeah. Some of the recycled materials can be used as cover, and I think some of it we're going to actually market it to nearby landfills for cover as well, because they're short as well. But it's not uncommon to pull recycled material from this operation to be used as cover material. Now, in the very end, when we cover the landfill for the final time, that will have to be clay. It'll have to be compacted. It'll have to be tested, and then go from there. And then a cover established.
Questions for Mr. Grove while he's up here?
At what point on page 19 do you put the liner in?
At what
point? At when do you put the liner
Okay,
in?
what we do is the quarry one, the first quarry, you don't put a liner all the way across. You don't wait until you fill up the whole quarry with rock and then 10 feet above the water table. You can actually start and get to about a third of the way across. In this case, we're a quarter way across, and you develop a cell. That means it has to be, you can develop one cell to put waste in. It has to be lined at that time, and there'll be another cell.
Okay, you've got one cell ready to go then, is that correct?
Almost, but it's not quite high enough, all the water table. So it has to have more sediment brought in.
Okay.
Yeah, the elevation of the dirt that's right there is not high enough yet.
So to do the complete cell, the water has to be, no, for an aerial photo, you wouldn't see water.
That's right. That's right. And you're talking about that first cell will probably last 12 years. And it takes a long time. I can't remember how long when you guys started filling in this first quarry, but it's been a while. So it'll take a while to go all the way across. And the quarry's 30 feet deep in water, 30, 40 feet deep.
Anyone else?
Okay, the water
Oh, yeah.
is 30 or 40 feet deep?
Yeah.
Now? Okay, and then the cell's going to be how deep?
Well, the above the water table, it's another 10 feet of rock. on fill material, and then at that point we can start the clay layer and then the liner. And so you probably have about 40 feet of the high wall of the quarry, about 40 feet to the top of the quarry. You have about 40 feet, 40, 45 feet. That would actually be landfill depth of material.
You'll have 40 feet to fill.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Else representing the applicant have a presentation or any input?
I don't think so. No, sir.
Any questions for any of the applicants? Mr. Grove, Ms. Wilmot, or Mr. Reed that's been up here? Jim?
I have a question. I can't help but notice with that much water, is there not a mosquito problem there? And if there is, do you have a plan for keeping mosquitoes under control?
Yes, we would. We would. That's part of maintaining a healthy site. We have to have. We can't have a mosquito environment. Can't have that at all.
Thank you. Now, anyone else wishes to speak? I would like for this gentleman to come up first, since I cut him off a while ago. If you've got something, if you would.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a quick question while he's on his way?
Sure.
How much is left on our C&D side at the county?
Left on our what?
Our years, longevity of our C&D site on the county. I just, inquiring minds want to know.
I think when we approved it a few years ago, or they applied for a new permit, that was 30 years at that time, wasn't it?
That was Allied Waste. The question on our C&D landfill, I recently had our staff look at that based on our GIS information, because we need it. We generate about 3,000 tons a month, and based on that, and based on our permit and how we can tie it in, we estimate probably 3 to 5 years is what we've got left, unless they, extend the permit or extend the footprint somewhere else.
Good question, Steve. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off a while ago.
My name's Donald Gentry. I live right on the northwest corner of Mr. Chambers' property. I know Mr. Chambers. I like him. I think he's a great man. Now, he owns property on two sides of me, and he has quite an operation. Now, I believe in recycling. I grew up on a farm. We shoveled manure out of the barn, put it on the field, grew crops to feed the cows. But we've been told that we're not going to have a noise problem. This crusher is not going to be loud. Well, I understand there's two crushers, there's conveyors, there's going to be a track hoe, there's going to be dump trucks in and out. What else? Loader? Dozer? Okay. Now, we're not going to have trash blowing around. Have y'all been outside today? I've been on a bulldozer all day. I've been working in a subdivision watching people putting stuff in a dumpster. And it's all up in the trees. Now, the builder has a policy. The sites stay clean, stays picked up. It's all up in the trees. And that's today. My granddaughter was over yesterday. We were flying a kite in the pasture. Now, I wonder how long we're going to be able to do that. She's 4 years old. And we've been told that our property will appreciate in value. Well, when you pop the door on a dumpster, what comes out? It's trash. It's a trash dump. Now, what's it going to do to our property? What about us? We all live out there. When we bought that place, it was run down, it was grown up.
I have planted pecan trees. I keep it mowed. I try to keep it nice looking. I think most of my neighbors agree. But this, my property value is going to go. And I was hoping that when me and my wife are gone, my daughter could sell that place and pay my granddaughter's college tuition. Without that, she don't have a chance. Now, if the real estate goes down the tubes, she don't have a chance. Now, I know they want to make money. I know recycling is a good thing. I don't think this is where to put it. This is a residential area. It should stay that way. I like living there, and I like being next door to LoJack. I have no problem. There is mountains of asphalt up there. I have no problem. There's not paper blowing around. There's no dust. A little bit of noise once in a while. I think we've taken care of that. I talked to him about it. He's taken care of that. I would really like to stay. And I don't want to see Rutherford County turn into a dump. We're only, what, 3/4 of a mile from the avenue? It's not very far. But I don't believe they're going to keep all the trash and dust down. I don't believe that we're not going to hear trucks dumping, a track hoe running, 2 crushers running, conveyors running, a loader loading trucks to haul it back across the road. And talking about the road, how many people have to get hit and killed by trucks on that road? It's narrow. How many pets have to get run over? You're talking big trucks on a little narrow road. Now, I pay taxes. I don't mind it. I'm proud to live where I live. I'm proud to be in Tennessee. I'm proud to be in Rutherford County. And Murfreesboro is one great place to live. But if you approve this, it's going to change. Now, if you... That's about all I have to say. If you have any questions you'd like to ask me, fire away. Thank you.
Anyone else wishes to speak? While this gentleman is coming up, let me kind of throw a couple of ground rules out. There's a lot of folks here, and if everyone wants to speak, we'll be here till this time next week. If you would limit your comments to about 3 minutes. If you need more than that, you're welcome to use that, but try to stay within the 3-minute limit so we'll have time to hear from anyone and everyone that wants to speak. Thank you.
Members of the Commission, I'm Matt Murphy, a local attorney. I'm here tonight as attorney for Betty and Tommy Horde. Betty and Tommy Horde own the property directly across from the entrance to this proposed recycle operation. They own 160 acres right across Broad Street. Their family owns a good deal of the property down that way towards the interstate. The Hordes are considering and thinking about in the future developing their property, and they'd like to develop it in a manner that would be very nice for our community. I think when you look at some of the entrances to our community from the interstate and look at Medical Center Parkway, look at Joe B. Jackson, they envision having something nice. It may be commercial, it may be industrial, but they view a recycle plant on 160 acres as not something good for our community, and especially not good for their property. We heard tonight that the existing 52 acres would last 30 or so more years. That is right in their face, but they object to another 110 acres being added to it. And let's look at the application about what we're talking about. We're talking about crushing and recycling asphalt, concrete, brick block, metal drywall, ceiling tile, lumber shingles, plastic, paper, cardboard, tree stumps, concrete pipes, concrete blocks, treated wood, residue, etc. Now, this stuff that's being recycled is being brought in from Rutherford County, Davidson County, Wilson County, and Williamson County. Now, do we want stuff brought in from counties that surround us into our community, particularly on one of the main gateway roads from the interstate into our community? It would occur to me that the reason it's being brought in is these counties probably don't want the stuff recycled in their community. So I'm here on behalf of the Hoards to say they'll accept what's there now, but please don't add to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Anyone else?
Sarah Martin. I don't live in Rutherford County. I live in Wilson County. So what happens over there really doesn't affect me very much, but it affects my daughter. My daughter lives there with her husband. They're working class people struggling to survive, and I don't want a dump in their backyard. I don't want their property to decline in value. I don't want my someday grandchildren breathing it. I'm real confused about the state's role in this. I keep hearing we coming from the state. We who? Who's paying for that? Who's paying for all these testings and federal? I know the feds probably play a part too, but who's paying for all that? Is the taxpayer paying for that? I don't want it in my daughter's backyard. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
My name is Paul Hightower, and I had no idea I'd be coming to speaking this, but I learned more and more and more, and this, I'm very upset. I moved out here, and it was heaven, and now it's what they call, some people call progress. Some people call it growth. Some people say it's good for a reason. I live the third person closest, what I can tell what they show me, the third person closest to where this action's going to be. I like coming outside and listening to the nice peace and quiet. I'm home during the day at times. I like it. I also like the neighborhood. I like the community. I like the people there. It's a nice community. It's a nice area. It's nice, and it's not gonna, this is going to ruin it. And I know for a fact. It's all how you perceive it, how you look at it. They said there's going to be a lack of noise. Noise is going to be buffered. Well, yeah, it'll be cut down. There's no way you can buffer that. Well, everything the gentleman just spoken a minute ago about all this going on. I mean, be real. Be real. And I'm wondering, is this going to be people? I can imagine there's going to be a mass of people coming in there, and it'd be like somebody said, it's be a clean city dump. I wonder about, they have all these plans, but growth means more. More means more good things to some people, bad things to others. And is going to be an expansion. They have all these set plans, and it sounds like convincing, but I don't, the sound is already loud. I mean, hey, we have traffic, everything, and then this one there, it's okay as it is. There's just traffic. That's part of growth. But to say that we have to have this here, we have to have this, but some people are going to be happy. Some on one side are, some on the other side who happen to live in that area. Like I just said, the environment and the peace and the quiet and the animals. And then again, like I said, the asbestos and other chemicals and all this stuff being surrounding me. my life is at peace today, but now I'm plagued in, and it's in there now. But all these things that are going to be right a few feet from me, literally. I mean, I'm looking at my house right there, and there they said it's going to be. All right, thank you very much for deciding my spot. And of course, this all comes down to, you know, many things. And one thing is money, because money rules all. I had no idea about speaking, but listening all that I listened to, you know, I moved here and I like it, but now my peace is no longer. But and it's going to pass because.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Roger Gunter. I live at 2756 Fawnwood Drive, myself and my wife. If I could, I'd like to speak on behalf of the people at the back of this thing. My property line, at the end of the line, probably is about 100 to 150 feet away from where they're actually going to be starting this, from the 100-foot barrier. Obviously, 3 minutes, try to respect it. Thank you for this opportunity, period. Two things. All of us have several concerns. I'm just going to point out two things real quick. Number one is the noise. A train whistle is 95 decibels, and that's from 500 feet away. Now, in my house, I can hear the train that is probably at least well over half a mile away as if it's in my front yard. This thing has been quoted, the rock crusher, I believe at 80 decibels. Now, obviously, they're going to do everything they can to keep that down. There's no way that within 500 to 700 feet of our property line, they can keep it down to a quoted 10 decibels. I mean, and you're looking at, I hear a train that loud, that far away. The second thing that I'm going to point out, and then I'm going to be done, because I know a lot of people out there have to speak. The one thing that really hasn't been discussed too much tonight is the animals. No one has really talked about, a lot of us, I'm a native from Cannon County. It's part of the reason I bought the property where I did. It's a small little tucked away area where you still got some countryside left that's not asphalted in this county. We talked about how the water source may not be affected for us, but the animals there, and then what are going to happen to them. Specifically, the thing that I think about is obviously where New Vision Baptist Church is at. Now that they've built the new entrance off of Thompson for the battlefield, what you're going to do is you're going to take all those animals and you're going to push them somewhere because they're not going to stay in that area. Or when you push them onto the battlefield in other areas, either they're going to our yards, which we're going to have skunks, possums, possibly rabbit animals, etc. We have small children, or you're going to push them into the road, which is going to make a massive hazard. We already have to obviously have a cop out there to direct traffic while New Vision is, conducting their Wednesday night services and et cetera. So I just want that, if you guys would, amongst everything else, to take into consideration. I'm 100% for recycling, but just not in this location. That's the problem that I see. Thank you for your time. If there's no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gunter.
My name is Dion Cagley, and I live on Fawnwood Drive. Also, the property not very far from, where it's going to back up. I'm a small business owner in Rutherford County. I'm all for that. However, this purely seems for profit to me. At our convenience centers, I have a question. Do we have this capability already? You can take your stuff there to recycle. I know this is on a much grander scale. However, we are residents. This is our home. This is where our kids play. I don't want to take the chance of any of this. Not only that, you can't tell me about the water yet. Why are we not finding that out first before the approvals? Don't we need the answers to those questions first to even make an educated decision? I mean, that's honestly how I feel about it. The property value, huge concern. We've all taken a nosedive, I think, recently in the last several years with what's gone on. we can't stand anymore over there. Can't take it. What y'all are saying, 50 trucks a day, even at 350 days that it might be open, the facility would be open out of the year, you're looking at 17,500 truckloads through that little, not to mention, are we going to widen the road? Are you going to is it going to be 4 lanes? Who's going to pay for all this? I don't want to pay for all this and it be detrimental to my cozy little neighborhood. And like my neighbors, I live there because it is small, because I'm on a cul-de-sac, because my kids can go out and play and I don't have to worry about it. Dust, noise, we feel vibrations and hear the sirens from over there already, all the time. It's doable, we can deal with it. This isn't. This just isn't. It should not be approved, in my honest opinion. There's just too much. And we don't have all the answers. Maybe if there were other answers, I don't know. Maybe we could come to an agreement of some sort. But right now, I don't think there's enough information.
My name is Mary Bentley, and if we have to tell where we live, I live in Davidson County, but I am one of the hordes. I own property, and I'm also love the environment. I do a lot of rehab work with animals, and that's one of my concerns. But another concern is the fact that I feel like we've had the wool pulled over our eyes. None of the paperwork that we have received has any mention of the word landfill in it. Everything just mentions that it's going to be a recycling center. And Ms. Wilmot, the other night, I was lucky enough to find out about the meeting last week, the day of the meeting, and I came up here for it. She alluded to the fact, at least several of us thought this was what she was saying, that there were some other sites that we thought were theirs that we could go visit to see if this was, the operation of it. Well, one of them was in Columbia, so I called Columbia and asked them if, what the hours were, if I could come down and visit and see their operation. Well, they had no idea what I was talking about, and they were upset that their name was being given out, and they don't allow visitors because their recycling facility is totally mobile. So I couldn't go see that one. And I haven't been downtown to see the other one, but I might like to go. Some of you don't think that construction and demolition is garbage, but I think a lot of us do. And I have some questions, really, more than disagreement or whatever. I'm not real good at this. So, what happens if another natural disaster occurs? Will they be allowed then to take the toxic and the hazardous materials that are produced when the tornadoes, floods come about? Because once a landfill is in, it's a convenient place to change a little of the variances for them to get the okay to take those things. So I don't know what the answer to that is. I know that I think the other one in Walter Hill started taking the toxic waste. I don't know that it did initially. I may be wrong about that. How do you test for asbestos? Did you know there are over 3,000 products that have asbestos in them? And I have some material for you all if you would like to look at any of this information, just to help you in your decision. But how will you find all of that asbestos? This is a question I'm asking. It's not a philosophical question. Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're going to be grinding up a lot of this. It's in cement and concrete.
Let me call a point of order. There's really no questions to be asked of the applicants. All of those questions have to be asked of the staff, and those are probably situations that we couldn't. It's Robert Rules of Order. I'm sorry. If we allowed it, we'd probably get into a shouting match with a lot of these things.
All right, well, then that would be a question that you might ask them, because so many of the, once you grind it up and it floats over the neighborhoods, then you have a problem. I think we all know. I'm sorry. Would you like to ask? I mean, I would like to know if they're going to be burying pressure-treated wood that contains arsenic. It used to be considered a hazardous waste, but after the RCRA Act, they were allowed to put it in dumps. And what kind of wood will they grind to make fuel? Is there any chance that it could be pressure treated also? Where did the water come from that's in there now? And if it's stopped up with the liners, the pressure can build up in the underground water, and that can lead to sinkholes, and crushing of sinkholes, especially can large equipment and heavy materials on top of them. And did y'all know that this site is largely sinkholes? So that's something that the state is going to have to look at, and they've told me that. How many trucks, do you have any idea what the weight will be on the roads? Each truck can carry around 25 tons apiece. So in my calculations, that's over 1,100 tons on our roads, or on your roads, a year, which is over 2,200,000 pounds. And I just don't understand why any of us would want to have our property rights compromised so that they can make money off of us. Therefore, I'd like for you to consider a continuance. And am I allowed to give them things at the end? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay.
All right. Well, first off, I want to just express thanks for having the chance to get up here and say my piece. So I'm 6th or 7th now, so a lot of what I was going to say has kind of been said. But one of the things I had...
You would state your name and address for the record, please.
Perfect. Sorry. All right. My name is Brian Frambach, and I live just off Asbury Lane, which is extremely close to the site we're talking about. And one of the questions I had is, we're talking about 50 trucks coming in. Well, that would also mean those same 50 going out. Well, then the recycled goods, they're going to have to leave in some fashion as well. So you're talking 50 in, 50 out. That's 100 trucks there, plus however the recycled goods are leaving. So that's quite a bit of traffic in addition to, we make it sound nice and neat with just 50 trucks, but there's actually, those same trucks have got to leave, and then whatever other business is taking place there. So you have all those trucks. That was one thing I wanted to bring up. And then one of the other things is I'm all for recycling too. I mean, I pay extra with my home to have the recycle bin there. I'm all for it. I think it's great, but I just want to echo what some of the other folks have said. I just don't think right here is where we want this. And would you want it next to your house? That's just rhetorical, but I mean, just think about it from our standpoint. That's all. Thanks.
Hello. My name is Michael Harlan. I live at 108 Jackie Lane. My wife Julie and I moved here in 2009, got married, bought a house, decided to start a family. I've got a beautiful little 2-year-old girl named Katie. Loves playing outside. Can't keep her indoors at all. And honestly, the thought of her playing outside next to this complex kind of sickens me. You know, it doesn't make me want to stay here and have her grow up in this house on this property. It makes me want to get the heck out of Dodge, right? I'd like to say I'm really close to this, but heck, all of us are. I don't think there's anybody in this room that's not close to this, that would not be affected by this. You know, they talk about all this traffic coming in. That's going to be on our road. That's going to be where our children play, where our animals are in the streets. It's going to affect us in a lot of ways. Now, we've heard a lot of the specifics from a lot of pretty educated and professional individuals up here tonight. The one thing that really stuck out to me, though, was they're all consultants, okay? You haven't heard anybody from LoJack up here speaking tonight. These people are professionals that make their living coming to town meetings like this, getting these things passed. You've heard them talk about opening centers like this in other towns, other cities, other states. As soon as this gets passed, these aren't going to be the guys that are here responsible for any of this. This is their business, okay? I think probably one of the most striking things that was said tonight was by this council member, Mr. Sandlin, up here tonight when he was asking Miss Tiffany, well, what are you going to do about this and what are you going to do about this? And her response was, I'm not going to be doing anything about this. This isn't me. I'm just a consultant. Okay, so again, as you make this decision, I would just challenge you to ask yourselves, if this thing was being built beside your house, beside your family, where you planned on staying for a long time, what would your decision be? And vote that way.
Good evening. My name's Jason Melton. I reside in Blackman Down subdivision, Jackie Lane, Augie Court, Asbury Court. We've heard a lot about this. Everybody's pretty much thing, noise, everything. Traffic, times, we've heard all of this, 6 a.m. in the morning. This is a heavy time for our children that's going to be riding on school buses and going up and down Old Nashville Highway, Asbury Road, Horde Road, and all of this area. We need to think about the safety of them. We are hearing that, oh, well, in the future we're going to look at having exits onto Old Nashville Highway to direct the traffic. We're heard for the time being that they're going to come across off of the LoJack property across Old Nashville Highway. They're also going to be coming across a Rev Road. Rev Road carries hazardous materials and stuff. What's going to happen if one of those trains is carrying those hazardous materials, going right down through there and a truck pulls right up in front of them? We could have a really huge disaster right in that area that is going to affect all of our children, plants, home values, animals, everything. I hope the commission will really take in heart and really look at this before us making any huge decisions and table this.
My name is May Gooch. I live at 4926 Major Drive.
and it's right behind my house. Only thing I gotta do is turn around. I see the rock quarry. I don't want that in my backyard. Period. That's all I'm gonna say.
I won't be as short as she was. My name's Lisa Boughton. I live in Gazebo Park Estates, which is approximately 2 to 2.5 miles from where this site is being proposed. I, too, am a small business owner. I run my business out of my home. It's very successful, and I also teach swim lessons to children any range from 2 to 10 years old. And so I'm in my yard a lot. I'm in my backyard. I love my subdivision. My boyfriend and I looked at property to buy years ago, and we decided we were going to stay where we were because of how small and intimate and quaint it was. My concerns basically cover the noise levels, and I'm not going to rehash what everyone said. I understand that the consultants and LoJack has proposed methods for these barriers, and that is a concern of mine, but my bigger concern is the truck noise, and there's no way that you can deter from that. I live in the middle of the avenues and this proposed site, and for the last 3.5 years, we have dealt with trucks going up and down Wilkerson and not only tearing it up, but leaving debris, getting behind them, getting in front of them. And I'm home during the day, and I can say honestly that I've seen a lot of those trucks cut through the subdivision. They're not supposed to, but they do. So I don't think that this proposed entrance in the current LoJack facility would be permanent. I think they're going to start using Old Nashville Highway. They're going to start using Asbury Lane, which is right down the street from my subdivision. They're going to start coming off at 840 and 24. It's going to grow, and they're not going to be contained to come in Broad Street. And besides, if you're a successful truck driver and you want to get your load there and get out quick, you're going to take the fastest way, and Broad Street's not going to be the fastest way. And I guess my big concern, too, is my property value. I would like the county to at least consider doing and revealing information on this landfill proposal, and I do call it a landfill. I support recycling. I support it not only in my home, but in my nutrition, and I'm organic, and I believe in this stuff, and I believe in the preservation of animals and children. I personally don't have children, but I feel for these people that are right around this area. I really do, and I don't want it to get in a worse state 10 years if I decide to move here. I want us to contain this property in its format now for our kids from 40 years from now. The contamination part I'm a little iffy on because I don't know about the studies. I haven't gotten enough information, but I'm kind of concerned. I do have a family member that is in construction debris on a constant basis. He's a remodeler and renovation specialist, and he has told me that there will be measures put into place, but so many people break those rules and come into those sites, and they have incentives. So I just want to make sure that whatever we allow in those sites is protected by those measures that you talked about. We hear tonight that there's going to be 2 or 3 measures, and then it went up to 4 or 5. So just for this commission, get those facts straight before we approve it. The dust, the odor, again, I'm not so sure. I haven't gotten enough details on that, but that is a concern of mine. On a final note, on the topic of naming this a recycling facility, and I will tell you that I have been told it was a dump, it was a landfill, it was a recycling facility. Even the posting in the newspaper yesterday said it's a recycling facility. They talked nothing about a landfill. So even the county is not promoting it properly. So what my concern basically is with the facility itself, could we really expect to recycle 80 or 85% of what's going into this? And if there is another site, I would welcome an invitation to preview it, whether it's in this state or in another state. but I would really not like to see us be a catalyst or the start of this program in our community. That's all I have.
My name is Miranda Chaffin, and I live where that little green yellow part is. It's 4900 Major Drive, and I am a stay-at-home mom, and usually during the day we're outside, and I can hear, the rock quarry, and I mean, I don't know how many buffers, and I don't know all the calculations and everything, but we can hear it go chick, 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 chick. And then sometimes I just say, well, there's a bombing, and I can hear it it just bombs, and you can hear it shake our house. So I can't imagine it being right behind us and what it's going to do to our horses and what the water supply that we feed our horses with our pond. I know what a septic tank does, and I know sometimes it leaks. And to me, that seems like it would do that if you have like an accident, and then it just comes right through us and destroys our horses and things that we cherish very much. And this is just breaking my heart.
Hi, I'm Annette Allen. I live on Fawnwood Drive, right next door to Roger. And I, again, just reiterate everything that everyone else says. I am concerned about the noise, water pollution, the quality of the air. I have asthma, so I already have respiratory issues, and I don't look forward to anything exacerbating that. Worried about my property value. I moved here from South Carolina in 1997. And looked at Murfreesboro as the place to live and really fell in love with it and felt like this was an up-and-coming city. But with a landfill next door to my home, that's kind of embarrassing, to invite people over and have them know that I live next door to a landfill. My other concern is that I did hear mention of a future interchange off I-840, right at Old Nashville Highway. Another reason I moved to the spot that I moved to was because of no crime or low crime. An interchange in that area, I think, would bring the possibility of an increase in crime in that area because you'd have a quick on and off access to the interstate. So that should be considered also if that's what the future holds, because I will have to move. And with the economy as it is now, can't afford to do that either. So just want you guys to consider that.
Good to see you made it into an open door this evening.
I'm Carolyn Dodson. I live at 5119 Old Nashville Highway, very close on the old Reynolds farm. So my house is 102 years old this year. And my late husband and I worked on the house for 30 years. We love this house, and we also have 14 1/3 acres there. So it's my home, even though we moved here from another state. I appreciate all of your insights and all of your thoughts and emotions, but my comment is a simple, factual one. Old Nashville Highway has no shoulders, and I haven't heard anybody say anything about shoulders on that road. With trucks, I've lost 3 dogs. I don't let my dogs run. They happen to get out, zoom. They were killed on the highway. And I think this is a very important thing that should be considered because I haven't heard the people who want to put in the recycling plant to do anything to develop the road anymore, and just heard about a left turn lane. So, thank you.
Board members, my name is David Simmons.
I live at 3032 Cimarron Trail. I do not back up to it, but I'm just across the street from it. I'm totally for it. I'll tell you up front, they're going to probably boo me and everything else. But when Nissan come in and they put 10,000 cars down Broad Street, was everybody up here booing against it, not wanting it? The Horde family, across the street, Murfreesboro City, I've seen their sludge trucks over there, the semi-trucks where they get the sludge out of the sewer plant, over there, spreading it all over the land. CUD man just talked to me over here a while ago, something about purchasing or doing something with the Horde land across the street from this. That's on Broad Street. This is on the old Nashville Highway. I'd like to ask Doug, if it wasn't for this, after it's over with, tell us what could be built there. Houses, or what could be built there, RM? Apartments, how many could be built on it if it was there? You talk about crime. Does anybody know where Tudor Travis's old place is? On the old Nashville Highway, on the right. It's owned by John Colbert. It is a halfway house for people that leave prison and live there. There's 15 to 20 living there right now. Y'all don't even know that. I'd rather have this, okay? Then yesterday, what really upset me, I'm not going to call no names, but there was a lady in a black SUV running up and down the street twice because I'm remodeling my house. And she stopped my son around the curb and was wanting to hand, he's 20 years old, wanted to hand him a piece of paper. Well, when he told her, no, my daddy's for it, she got very hateful with him. He had a witness with him too, and she drives off real fast. You know, I don't know what's wrong with some, but I'd rather have this than anything. Because, you know, you can put a lot of things there. How'd you like the man across the street that's doing the felons? Come over and buy part of that land and build a place and put 50 more felons over there living there. Would you like that? You know, y'all talk about everything, but I'm for it. I'll tell everyone that's on the board, I'm for it. If I thought my property value was going down, I wouldn't be spending $20,000 right now remodeling my house inside and out. I've been there 10 years. I love it. A lot of people run business out of their house. In that neighborhood, it's illegal. It's not been to the Board of Zoning Appeals to get zoned for it, but they want to knock somebody that's trying to do something right. When we had the tornado that Easter Sunday, or Good Friday, they could have bought the stuff over here and recycled it. The county landfill takes houses from the city and everything else. It's just a lot of things goes on. And then you talk about water backup, this and that. I'll not say this with Will sitting here. He's a farmer. But, you know, if you got a sinkhole on your farm, a lot of farmers just fill that sinkhole up. And that backs water up on the other people. So, you know, I'm for this 100%. And I think it's the best thing that happened to the county. But I want Doug to answer what could go over there. And if it was 70 houses, 80 houses, how much traffic would that do if everybody has 2 cars at that house? And what it would do for the schools, the taxes, and everything. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak for or against?
My name's Tommy Howard. I want to clarify what the last fellow said. Those are not our sludge trucks. The city owned those trucks. They approved that sludge. If you don't like it, you got to take it up to the city of Murfreesboro. And they have since improved that situation. Mr. Jordan's farm has got effluent put on it now, and that's probably the way it ought to be. But the time this fellow saw those sludge trucks, that was with the blessing of the city of Murfreesboro sewage system. Thank you.
very shy person, so it takes a lot for me to get up here in front of you all. My husband would be here tonight. He's a firefighter, but he's on shift. And I know he called you all to let you members here, let you all know that he does not want this. We do not want this. When we moved to Murfreesboro in 2010, we looked at different properties in our price range. Some of the properties we looked at were over by the dump, the landfill, whatever you call it. We chose not to buy a house over there because we did not want to live by a dump, landfill, recycling center, whatever you'd like to call it. I don't want to live by that. I picked this home, and I plan to be in it. I plan to raise my children. I don't have children yet. I plan to raise them there. And I want you all to think about if this was you. If this is you. You are a member of this community. All of you are. I want you to look at me in the eyes, every one of you, because you won't even give me the courtesy of looking at me, because you all know what you're going to do. If you can't look me in the face, that says something to me. Think about it if this were you, if you were standing here. What would you want? How does this stand to benefit Rutherford County? Not just me as a homeowner who lives there, but you all. How does it benefit any of us?
Ma'am, would you please state your name and address?
It's Jessica Piche. It's spelled Piche. We live at 5024 Ventura Court.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, my name's Scott Clements. I live at 3277 Cimarron Trail, which is right off of Asbury right here. And I haven't heard anybody say much about the Stones River battlefield down here. I don't know if that's like a half a mile or something other way, but I've been living here since '89, and there's a whole lot of people from all over the U.S. that come see the battlefield. And all the time you see all kind of out-of-state cars and everything. And I also think that, like some people said, that they're not just going to go through the Murfreesboro Road to Broad Street. I think they're going to come off every other road around there, because they're not going to know exactly the route to take, so they're going to go the short route. I think it's going to take our property values down, and the traffic's going to be bad, the noise. I can hear the train like it's in my backyard, and when the leaves are off the trees, you can really hear it in the wintertime. So this thing's going to be running all the time, summer, winter. Summer's a little better with the leaves on the trees, but the wintertime, it gets really loud, and I think it'll be loud here. But the property value, the traffic, big trucks, when you got 50 going in, 50 going back across the road, and then leaving out and everything, I just think it's going to be a whole lot more traffic. And if the landfill out there at Walter Hill fills up, then this will be another place they can say, well, we already got started here, and we're doing this, so we can go ahead and slide this in here. And just remember, it's right down from a park, a national battlefield or whatever.
Thank you. Anyone else that has not spoke? We'll take one more if you have something additional. Mr. Hightower, I believe it was.
Again, I'm Paul, and I had no idea about this. Of course, there's much more than this is much more than I realized, much more than I even thought about. But just as this young lady who was just here a short time, and I just found out she lives right down the road from me, so I'll get to know this person. Anybody who's for this, except for this one person who just spoke a short time ago, they don't live here. They don't live what this is going to be. They would not do this to themselves. They would not be saying, this is so great, this is going to be so good, because it's right in my neighborhood. They're not going to say it. They don't live anywhere near there. I'm pretty sure about that. I mean, I don't know that. But if this was in anyone's neighborhood, would they want it? This is all in the name of progress, as we say it. They want this sort of progress in their neighborhood, in their street, in their backyard with their children, with the peace and the peace and cleanliness it'll be no more. It's that simple. No matter what kind of guard you have, prevention, and all these numbers are just numbers kind of thrown on there because they're not actual numbers of the reality. And in time, things will be retained and kept just at these numbers. It'll progress, as the word is said, progress. Or if you think the opposite word of progress is what I say about this. I know I don't speak the well. I had a head injury years back, and I don't have the nerve for this, but my head injury just speak. And this is the truth is what I speak. It's just my life, and these people here, it's cleanliness. And that street's a very busy street. It's very busy, and it's like a highway. And I said about the battlefield, man. Just think about it. What is your address?
Anyone else wish to speak for or against this rezoning proposal? Seeing no one, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed. And commissioners, we're open for questions, comments, motions.
I've got a couple of questions for Doug. Like I said before, the top part on the other side of the Old Nashville Highway is already zoned heavy industrial. We're looking at zoning this heavy industrial. Then, does the state give a permit for a quarry? I mean, we're not approving a quarry. We're just zoning heavy industrial.
That's correct.
I know back in '86 or '7, the county approved a quarry out on Jefferson Pike and thought it was going to be a pretty small time operation. And once it was zoned, it took off, and we didn't have power to put the brakes on anything. So who decides if there were to at some point in time decide to go to a Class 1 or whatever the next level? Is that the state, or does that come back to us?
Well, I would say both. C and D landfills, what they're talking about, are classified under a certain classification in our new zoning ordinance. They're called extensive impact facilities. So are sanitary landfills, which is a different class of landfill. Sanitary landfills, while they are permitted in heavy industrial zones, are only permitted by a special exception. They're not permitted by right. So that means even if the zoning is in place, if this were to go through, it would be, they would still have to make application to the Board of Zoning Appeals for any approval for a sanitary landfill similar to the one on Jefferson Pike. That's not the case for a C&D landfill, but it is the case for a sanitary.
They were going to do just a C&D landfill at this point in time, like I said before, across the road. They wouldn't need anything from us. Is that correct? They just go to the state?
That's pretty much correct, yes, sir. I mean, I think that's kind of what they're doing, right? I think that's what what they spoke about at the beginning.
Well, they're filling it, but not with debris, I take it. They're filling it with rock or dirt or something, which...
Yes, I think you're right. But to answer your question, could they do that across the street at that existing site? Yes, they could. With proper state permits. You know, they just, as far as the zoning is concerned, that's in place.
I may be stepping ahead of everybody else, but what I'm thinking, if they're only going to put 15% of it in the pit, they could sort that stuff 10 miles away or anywhere, you know, in a proper industrial setting, and then bring those few trucks and put it in that pit, and they've got 40 years worth of capacity in a pit that's already zoned heavy industrial. But that's just... Because looking up and down Old Nashville Highway, all the way from the train tracks up at the trailhead of the Greenway, inside the city of Murfreesboro, pretty much all the way into Smyrna, can't think of any industrial property on that side. You know, so I don't know. That's just, I may be stepping ahead if somebody else has got questions. I wanted to ask about the other part first.
Other questions? Any other comments?
I think there was a couple of folks that asked some questions in their comments. Doug, can you answer those questions, or do we need to refer back to the applicant themselves?
I think the most of the question, I wrote down several comments that people made about different concerns that they had. I do remember the one lady that came up here that had several questions. Most of those, I think, would be better served by the applicant answering those. I've kind of jotted down what I think the gist of her questions was as fast as I could. Hopefully they were keeping notes as well. But I think those questions would really be better served answered by the applicant.
Mr. Chairman, if we could allow the applicant to answer those questions, I'd appreciate it. There was quite a few uncertainties there that need to be answered, I believe.
Agree with that 100%, Steve. Any particular questions that you jotted down that you'd like to have them answered?
No, there were quite a few that she had. I was hoping that Doug wrote them down there or something, but
And again, I was.
I thought she gave you a copy of some things that she needed.
Well, she gave me a copy of. I don't necessarily know if the questions were on those.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
there were several handouts, and I passed them around to you, so I don't have them up here with me.
On the pre-treated wood stuff and all
Right.
that.
There was something about the pre-treated wood. There was a question about what happens during natural disasters. Again,
Yeah.
I was trying to write as I was listening, so I may not have gotten the gist of everything. Would they be able to, if you have them, that'd be great. Let's go.
Jamie, Tiffany, Tony, would you guys like to come up and help answer some of these questions?
My name is Brian Carr. I actually live in Smyrna, so I am a county resident, and I work for LoJack, so I do represent them, the applicants, so I'll be here to answer questions as well.
I think. Go ahead.
Well, I just have a question on the construction traffic. You came up with the 50 trips in and out, and then one of the residents brought up a good question about the auxiliary construction traffic that might be on there. Will you just expound on that just a little bit about what kind of traffic do you think you would have on site from a construction standpoint?
Okay, so that's a good question. And the traffic coming in and out, we won't have as much material going out to recyclers as we will have coming in. So as they come in, the reason we want to do it in this site is to use the asphalt and that material that we can put back into the material that we're making. And so he's right that the trucks will come in and they will go out. We think we will get up to 50 at some point. We're not going to start that way because right now nobody knows about us and there's just going to be a few trucks coming in and out. But that's true. There will be trucks coming in and out. And the material that will go out will be things like gypsum. So wallboard will go out and metals will go out. Those are things that we can't recycle there. We'll just compile them, bale cardboard, that kind of thing, and then send it back out.
You're talking about additional to the 50 trucks coming
Additional
in.
to the 50,
You
but
know, I would assume if you're recycling that up, probably 20 to 30. Is mine on? 20 to 30 approximately that would be going out. Additionally to the 50 trucks going in.
Right. Delivering. Tiffany, on the recycling question, if you were to harvest 80% of what comes in, then what is the 20% that would actually go in the cell?
So right now, we're thinking that we want to recycle 85%. If we could do more, that would be great. The rock will go into the quarry and dirt right now, so that's a pretty good percentage of it. And then a lot of the 60% will go back into the asphalt mix.
So if I understand right, any asphalt that comes in, you will regrind and actually harvest back on LoJack's asphalt plant
Exactly.
right there. So once it's on site,
It's
you're making
there.
new asphalt out of it.
Right.
Okay.
That gets back to what Will was saying earlier. You don't want to have something sorted several miles away. That defeats the whole purpose of reuse and recycle on site. You're burning more gas and material, so you all want it all focused in one area to recycle, sort out, haul out,
All right. So even shingles, asphalt shingles, then would be recycled. Okay. So what actually would then go into a cell? Give us an example of what you couldn't harvest or recycle that would ultimately go underground.
when we put that on top of the layer, it's not going to be much. It's probably going to be fines, so it's going to be things that are going to be too small for us to sort out. But material that would go in there would be things like little small pieces of plastic or just small pieces that we can't sort out.
All right.
So it could be wood.
But just to say this for the 10th time, these are building materials, right? This is the same stuff that are in our houses right now. If we have treated wood decks, we have treated wood, the arsenic in treated wood. I mean, come on, we live in houses all the time with treated wood in it. This is not hazardous, although you're lining the cell and the ground as it would be a hazardous waste facility. There's no medical waste. There's no methane gas to give off from decomposition, right? So ultimately, you fill it up full of building materials that would normally go in a landfill somewhere else. And then once that particular cell is filled, you cap it with clay and plant grass and trees on it. Okay. And Doug, this may be a question for you or our county engineer. Could you realistically, if you had unlimited resources of funds, fill those 3 holes in the ground that are 40-some feet deep and actually build something on top of them that would be in such that you would never be worried about building footings shifting and cracked walls and things like that? Is it a buildable site by coming and putting fill in a hole?
I mean, if in a perfect world, and like you said, if money was no object, I think realistically you probably could do something. But reality is what exactly is kind of the material that's going to be used, and there's so many variables in there. It'd be difficult to say outside of a perfect world if that could ever be done.
It's probably safe to say that you would not want to put a building on top of a filled quarry site.
I mean, that probably goes a little beyond my, as far as the actual construction of a building. I don't know if Mr. Jones is still present or not. You might want to refer that to Mr. Jones.
And just to be clear, too, these would set some 10 to 13 feet above the water table, right? So any groundwater that's passing naturally back and forth in any direction will never come into the cell. Can't come in, can't come out, right? Rainwater, where would the rainwater go that falls on the site as it's being constructed or as the cell's being filled?
About on the site, there's a stormwater pond. Well, it's in the book. It's on one of the pages. There's a stormwater cell I alluded to earlier. All that will be captured, and that water will be reused in the facility.
All right. The water that's in there now, I mean, I know that's, well, changing subjects. The water that's in those 3 pits now are primarily rainwater or runoff water, I assume. How do you dispose of that as you're filling in rock and soil into that first cell? How do you displace the water, and where does it go? Do you have to pump it out? And do you Okay. 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 All right. So. Yep. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. One question on noise, and on page 20, where you have the L-shaped soil berm proximity most closest to the subdivision, how high do you anticipate that soil berm to be? Right. Okay. Right. Okay. All right. If need be, after studies or communications back and forth with yourselves and the neighborhood, needed to extend that L-shaped buffer up the property line a little bit, is that something you could do? Right. Okay. Right. Yeah. So your desire at this point is for the rezoning, because there's really no guarantee in a year and a half the state is going to permit this anyway. Yeah.
Oh, I'm serious.
Yeah. Just now? Well, they said earlier on in the beginning that there's approximately a year and a half process for the state to actually come out and permit the site, and there's really no guarantee that the state will sign off on it. Just because they apply doesn't mean the state's going to grant it. So.
Applications go through public comment period. It's a 90-day public comment period, so we go through that twice. It takes a year and a half at minimum for a permit application to go through TDEC. And at the same time, we go through public comment period. So when the permit goes out for public comment, all residents in this area can go through that meeting, just like we're doing here, and provide comment rather than TDEC itself.
A last comment, and then I'll let my fellow commissioners ask questions. I think you said that all traffic or all the roads that construction equipment will be on in and out will be paved, so that eliminates majority of your dust issues.
That is correct, and the woman alluded to shoulders on the highway. When they do place the turn lane on Old Nashville highways, they'll place shoulders on both sides where they're doing the paved shoulders when they're doing the left turn lane. So where they place the turn lane and the taper lanes, they'll have paved shoulders on that portion in front of their property.
Mr. Chairman, I think I've got the questions that
thank you, Doug.
that were being asked. The first one had to do with during a natural disaster like a tornado or something like that. Will you take any additional materials besides what the normal construction, demolition, debris that you would normally take? Would you take anything in addition in the event of some sort of a natural disaster?
One of the misconceptions about disasters is that in a situation like this landfill cannot take debris from natural disaster areas. Do not think it can, because what happens is the debris is mixed. Okay? Natural disasters, they don't sort debris out in the natural disaster area and put hazardous stuff over here and other stuff over here. All that stuff has to either go to a hazardous waste landfill or go to a sanitary landfill. Most of the time, 98% of it goes to a sanitary landfill. Okay? So natural disaster areas will not increase the load going into this plant because we can't take it. We're not permitted to do that.
I have a question, if I could. Now, this property, I understand, is LoJack's, correct? And you say that when you do the environmental impacts, it takes a year and a half to 2 years to get all of that done. And if the state doesn't approve that, it's out, right, or whatever. My question is, it's your property. It's already, it belongs to you to begin with and whatever. Why would you not go ahead and get these impact statements at the very beginning before going through all of this?
I think I can answer that. Because they are very expensive, and there's no use spending that money if we're not going to get rezoned. So, and we've talked about this. The process is once we get the zoning, then we start dealing with all the TDEC permits because all those studies are very, very expensive. So it doesn't make sense for us to spend that up front and then not get zoning.
Please withhold your comments. These people are trying to answer questions, and if you would, please hold your comments and let's show a little bit of courtesy, if you would, please. Thank you.
I might want to comment a little further, is that the air permit, the wastewater permits, and the landfill permits all have to go through public comment. It goes to the same scrutiny as this. TDEC listens to the public when it comes to issuing permits. Okay, so this is just we want to get the public involved in the very beginning as we started designing this. There's a lot of requirements we want designing with your input. We had a lot of good input during the meeting at the church, and we've incorporated that into it. We want to get more from the public as far as what needs to be done and what their concerns are. We heard concerns about drainage in the neighborhoods because of the sinkholes. We're going to take those into consideration and try to help out the neighborhoods effect better drainage from their site with this site right that we have here. So it's a long process. There's a lot of questions to be asked, and there'll be a lot of answers to be given. So it's not the end. If it's approved tonight, doesn't mean that you're going to have a landfill there tomorrow. It's not. Okay.
Some of the other questions here that she had down, she was wondering, can you start taking hazardous materials along those lines? I think she had some concerns about the kind of wood that would be accepted, the pressure-treated wood, those kind of things. What kind of wood is being ground to make fuel? Again, is it the pressure-treated wood? That seems, and she wanted to know also, how do you test for the asbestos as it comes in? If it's already kind of, as I understand, if it's already ground up or brought in, how do you test for, how do the tests pick that up?
Okay, the asbestos is readily identifiable by the fibrous that it is, okay? It's sort of like fiberglass. You can readily see it. The one thing about it is that the sorting part of this operation is indoors. It's in a covered facility. Everybody's thinking that it's outdoors, out in the open, but it's under a big enclosed facility. They're going to come in, put the stuff in there, and they're going to sort underneath that canopy. So the thing about asbestos, they'll be able to take their time and go through it and look at it. Are we going to catch 100% of it? Probably not, okay? But the thing about it is that we have to control dust. If it includes asbestos, it includes asbestos, but asbestos is not a contaminant in the landfill. Somebody made a comment earlier that it can migrate into groundwater. No, it cannot. The thing about treated lumber, it cannot go in the C&D landfill, okay? Well, the thing about it is lumber probably can, but not pressure-treated lumber, okay? Yeah. Well, that's something that I will deal with as the environmental consultant on the project. So, okay.
There was some
I
other.
can answer that. Pressure treated wood will come in because sometimes you can't tell if it's pressure treated or not. It will come in to the site, but it will be separated out. There are boilers in Alabama that take that, and they have scrubbers on their stacks, so we can give that to them, and they will use it to make fuel. We would not use it on the site. The only material that we would turn into mulch it would be unpainted, untreated wood, that just like the current mulch site that you have in Rutherford County.
I think this question was answered where the current water in those pits come from, and I think I heard you say it was groundwater, not so much runoff. Okay. She also had some concerns about the sinkholes on the property. Maybe somebody address that.
Well, this entire area has a lot of sinkholes. In the neighborhoods, there's sinkholes all over the place. The water doesn't really flow off your property. It actually drops down and hits a sinkhole and takes off. The thing about it, we have large conduits of groundwater flow. These things water flows like almost the size of a railroad underground tunnel. If you've ever been in a tunnel in Manhattan or something like that in a big city, that's how big these tunnels are that water flows through going from south to north. So a lot of water, it's like a sponge. It sinks right down to the ground and flows north. So as far as sinkholes, this is a very karst terrain. That's what they call it. Sinkholes is karst terrain. And the whole middle part of Tennessee is sinkhole populated very much. But I don't know how that may be an issue for the residents. I don't know if that was what the sinkhole issue may be.
Well, I think
State says, yeah, there's sinkholes here. Yes, there are. Yeah, sinkholes in this area are a big issue as far as drainage. As far as, I couldn't hear.
I heard about the same thing you did. Sorry. The last question she had to do with the weight of the trucks. And I think she said over 3,000 pounds. She's had some notes jotted here, but I don't remember the exact what she was. Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
I think that's all that I had.
If that's all you got, Doug. Mr. Chairman, I got a question. The post-closure landfill plan, I mean, you're going to have to do something that too, because this will be LoJack's for perpetuity. That's the word I'm looking for. So, I mean, as far as testing and everything, you'll have to set up just like the county or anybody else had to do as far as a landfill plan. So that's something else that you're going to have to do. Okay.
Yeah, the post-closure, once the land. Means that it has to be monitored for 30 years. I'm sorry. He was asked about post-closure. Once the landfill is closed and capped, it has to be seeded on top. It has to have established vegetation on top for eternity, okay? You can't plant trees on top of the landfill. It has to be a grassy field. But it goes through post-closure for 30 years. It's monitored for 30 years. After 30 years, it goes into a post-closure, which is monitored infrequently. But that first 30 years, it has to be monitored every month until those 30 years pass. And the company has to hold financial responsibility with the state of Tennessee in case anything may happen, that they will fund the reclamation of the site itself. So there's financial responsibility with the site after they permit the landfill.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just make just a couple more comments. Just clarifying a couple of the comments that the lady had. I don't think she was able to hear the response you had about the weight of the trucks. If you could just stand a little closer to the microphone when you make the response. I think they're having a problem hearing it.
The loads that are allowed in there are legal loads. Old National Highway is I think it's a state highway, so it's built to specifications for certain weights. And what's that? Is that correct on Old National Highway? In a state highway? Yeah. So it's got to be at least 22 tons. Yeah. State highways are built for 22 tons. We've built, yeah. So is it going to be like semis or dump trucks? Dump trucks.
The other question, just kind of clarifying the asbestos comments. One of the handouts that she has here lists a number of different things that asbestos is found in. I think the question she had is, how do you find it in some of these things if it's part of a product? I think was kind of the concern that she had.
Now, the asbestos, how you identify it is visual observation within microscopic observation. You have to take a sample. You have to look under a microscopic procedure to figure out if it has asbestos or not. So there is a standard out there, ASTM standard for identifying asbestos. Okay? And that will be done on site. Yeah, she was talking about the handheld devices. That's nothing to do with asbestos, but asbestos is monitored by visual and also by the microscopic procedure.
I think that's all.
One question. When one of the ladies spoke, she had asked about if the county is responsible for any payments of the research and the land assessment, and I know the answer, but I want you guys to say it out loud.
All the studies, the permit fees, everything, the monitoring, air monitoring, all that has to be paid by the owner, okay? On top of that, they have to hold liability insurance for the property, for the operations, especially the landfill. Financial security. It's in several millions of dollars, okay?
Oh, questions? Questions must be asked through the commission, please.
So I just wanted to address the property value a little bit. That was something that you all brought up last Monday, and we thought that was a really important point, and we have started to look into it. We are just at the beginning stages of that. I pulled a couple comps off the internet just to get started, and found before and after prices of three areas, and one in California, and then one in Nashville, and the other in Columbia, and did a before and after comparison of the land values, and all of them went up from before the landfill or a recycling center was put there, and then after. So we're just at the initial phases of that.
Any other questions from the commission?
I had a question. You all are recycling asphalt there now, are you not? On the property across the road, because you can take it and grind it and put it back to the boiler, and so you are recycling asphalt there already without any additional zoning or anything. Okay. Because it is great to be able to recycle. The trucks can come in with the old asphalt when it's milled and turn around and haul the fresh out, and and that's that much less that just come in from the quarries and everywhere else. But regardless of what we do here tonight, you are recycling asphalt there and can continue to do so.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. It seems like the primary objection that I'm hearing from the residents is the C&D landfill. And if 85% of your business is going to be the recycling, have you discussed at all the possibility of just being in the recycling business and not disposing of that 15% there on site?
Yes, we have discussed that, but part of the advantage to the county here is, just like we heard tonight, that the county C&D is 3 to 5 years to being full, and then if you don't have another C&D, you're going to divert this to the one in Walter Hill, which means the life of that one is going to be shorter. So we just saw this as a win-win for us and for the county to open this one up.
And then, Dale, whenever the county C&D landfill has to close, what will we do with that material then?
Well, a couple options. You can apply for another permit or expand the current one. Pardon me. Or you shut it down and have them go to Allied Waste. I mean, you're going to continue to generate the waste, and so you have to have a destination for that waste. That's basically where we're standing right now with our facility.
Any other questions from the group while they're up here? Thank you.
Oh, boy. Mr. Chairman?
Steve.
I think the credibility on SEC is outstanding. The credibility on LoJack, outstanding. I don't know the other two and just met those, but those two companies know what they're doing, and they've proven themselves over and over and over. The problem I have with it, though, is some things that have not been done. And I understand their side as well as I understand all these folks that are surrounding it here, and the folks that have spoken, and the folks I've gotten calls from, and everything else. And, you know, without that environmental study, I don't think we should approve it. I don't think... I'm going to be like Commissioner Jordan. Y'all hold up just a minute, and let's get through this thing. There's some post-closure plans, landfill plans. That bothers me. You asked a very good question right there, and that may be what they come back with. I don't know, but you know, the traffic issues, the noise issues, the water issues on the unknown for these quarry sites. The airborne issues that are unknown, the Saturday hours, the quarry itself, the national park. I know we've had some other stuff, and the representatives from the national park have been here. I don't know why they're not here tonight. If they're okay with it, then I guess that's why they're not here. But they
Mr.
may
Sandlin,
have been.
if I can, not to interrupt, they were here earlier. They have left during that time.
Have they given a letter or?
No, I did have a meeting with them. I don't want to put words in their mouth. They had some concerns. I think generally they were okay with what was being proposed, but they did have some concerns, some of the same concerns that are being raised tonight. Generally, I think they are okay with the concept is what they're proposing. Again, I'm trying to be real general because I don't want to put words in their mouth, but they did have some of the same concerns that were being raised here.
Mr. Chairman, with those issues, and I've counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 issues that I have, that's uncertainties. So if you're uncertain about that many times, even the major one, the environmental study, and like I said, I understand the applicant and not wanting to spend any more money or go any deeper with this until they have the zoning, and I totally understand that. But I think until some of these other things are done, you're not going to get these folks that are living right beside it comfortable, and there still may not be comfortability after that. But with those things stated, I'm going to have to make a motion to deny.
We have a motion to deny. Need a second. I'm sorry. I have a motion and a second to deny. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion to deny, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? No. Call the roll.
Rhonda Allen? No. Jim Averwater? No. Veronica Buchanan? No. Will Jordan?
Yes. This is a motion to deny, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Mike Cush?
No.
Craig Lynch? Yes. Pettis Reed?
Yes.
Steve Sandlin?
Yes.
Mike Watt?
Yes.
Jeff Phillips?
No.
5 noes and 5 yeses. Motion fails.
Motion fails.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve as presented.
Motion to approve. And a second. Any discussion on that motion?
Yes, I'm going to make an amendment to that motion. That the environmental study is done prior to never mind, it's not going to help. Yeah, I mean,
I'd just like to say I keep thinking about the underground tunnels or caverns between interconnecting these, and that was underground travel ways for water before pre-existing, forever. That's where the well water and underground water flows. And you fill these things up, unless you put something that's porous down there, like shot rock or boulders, and you're trapping that water and restricting that flow, and water pressure can be unbelievable. You know, and I'm just wondering about the how much the liner will hold up with that much water pressure, and if that's going to affect wells downstream and everything else. Because, you know, instead of that water mill to keep on flowing like it has been since the beginning of time, and you've got a plug right in the middle of it, you know, and then that busts out the bottom of the liner, and you've got a contamination problem. I just think there's more questions and answers here, and they can still do what they want to do on that top side. For 40 years, they've got to get creative about where they're going to do their sorting, but they can keep recycling their asphalt right there, sort their other material somewhere else, and go to the state and get approval for the top. And if they've done that in the next 40 years, then whoever's here can look at the other side of the road. But it won't be us. But I don't know. I just am very uncomfortable about approving this when they've got a piece of property already there. It's got a 40-year spot. It's appropriately zoned. But that's just my opinion. Ought to be yours.
I hadn't said a word tonight. Probably not in the mood to talk a whole lot. But Ms. Maddie Gooch came up here and she said, I can see this from my house and I don't want to see it from my house. And I'm unwilling. This is the only spot, the spot that's presently zoned heavy industrial is the only spot in this area that's zoned that way. And I'm unwilling to jump the road and give a heavy industrial zoning, which is a broad zoning in my opinion, to another piece of property when I look at that map and there are houses all the way around it. I just don't think it makes good sense. And that being said, I have a lot of respect for Jamie Reed and SEC. I have a lot of respect for LoJack. I came down here thinking I was going to vote for it because I thought it was a good idea to fill this hole back up. Now, that's the bottom line. And I saw the gentleman from the Park Service here. I've had a conversation, I had the opportunity to meet him and have a conversation with him. I know he's involved with Recycle Rutherford. I also know he's involved, he works at the battlefield. So I know that he's got mixed emotions. I've got mixed emotions too, but when I look at that map and I see that ring of houses around it, I'm just unwilling to vote for it. Since I hadn't said anything tonight, I thought I'd give an explanation. Thank you.
We had a motion. Do we have a second? A second. Other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just as Mike was saying there, right there, I brought up tonight too about the environmental impact and things of that type, and what he was saying there, the houses that are around there. Of course, I come from an agricultural background, but I know for a fact that we're talking about setting that facility right next to these houses out there. I know as a farmer, if I was in the process of getting ready to put a grain bin with a dryer, I wasn't sitting next door to my neighbor's house for it to run all night and disturb their peace and quiet and whatever. And I've heard some other comments made here as far as, you know, where it could be placed and things of that type. And I see what they've done in engineering. But just as Commissioner Sandlin has said here, I've sat here and done these different things here and have written down these things too here, dealing with noise and water table and things of that type. But the traffic catches my attention. The shoulders of that highway out there, if you've ever driven the old Nashville Highway, what it does to you and involved there. And then the battlefield and how it affects there as well. And this environmental impact that we keep bringing up right here, and they're talking about what that cost. But you know, a penny spent may be a dollar earned when you're trying to do something like this. And as I had mentioned earlier, that as I was going back and looking at what some other people had done as far as reclaiming quarries, everything I read the first thing they did was environmental impact to see what it's going to do as far as the water quality, as far as everything around there. And that's the first thing they did. And one of them I was reading here, it said they done that before any planning was done to see what's going to be affected. One gentleman even brought out tonight of the animals that are out there. You know, we hadn't said a thing about that. We know nothing about what's going to be affected there too. So I think there's a lot of things that are questioned here.
Other questions? Ready to vote? We're going to also have a roll call vote on this one, and this is a motion to approve. So a yes would be to approve, a no would be to not approve. Call the roll, Gal.
Rhonda Allen? Yes. Jim Averwater? Yes. Veronica Buchanan? Yes. Will Jordan? No. Mike Cush? Yes. Craig Lynch? Pettis Reed? No. Steve Sandlin? No. Mike Vaught? No. Jeff Phillips?
No. Motion fails.
Now we still, just for procedural, all that did was deny a motion. There still has not been a recommendation made.
I flip-flop twice here, and it's probably my fault, but the arguments that I have heard from the commissioners that have made comments have changed my mind and swayed my opinion, so we're open for another motion. No. I'm sorry? What's that?
We needed to do that before.
I mean, if the floor is open for a motion at this point. Now, I guess the question would be, well,
my motion was to deny the application, but based on those items, I understood the motion correctly from Commissioner here to approve
right
as presented.
Right, which
is
failed.
That not correct?
That is correct, and I think you're accurate. Now, all that is done, though, there's a motion to approve that failed. There has not been a formal recommendation made. All you have is a failed motion. And I mean, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think that's right. There's no.
We haven't done that before. I mean, we've
I think we have. I know during plat and plans, especially, maybe not so much for rezonings, but when it comes to plats and plans, which really is not a whole lot different, whenever we've had a motion to approve that failed, it was followed up by a motion to deny. And it should, and procedurally, that's how it should work. Again, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong.
All right. So if we make a motion to deny the application, then what's the time frame for them to bring it back forward?
I believe
6 months.
I believe that's correct. Now let me flip it in here just to make sure I'm.
Well, I was thinking
I want to read it verbatim from here because there is provision in here for that.
And it may give them an opportunity to get the environmental study done or whatever. But as of this point, then this would be denied.
Okay. It says, whenever an application for an amendment to the text of this ordinance or for a change in the zoning classification of any property is denied, the application for such amendment shall not be eligible for reconsideration for 6 months following such denial, except for the following cases. Now, when it's talking about denial, it's talking about before the Board of Commissioners, not just because in rezoning matters, you're just a recommending body. Okay, the final decision comes from the Board of Commissioners. Now, there are some provisions in here that do allow it to be brought up within 6 months upon initiation by the Board of Commissioners or Planning Commission when the new application, although involving all or a portion of the same properties for a different zoning district than that for which the original application was made. In other words, they could come back next month with light industrial or something like that. And then number 3 says when the previous application was denied for the reason that the proposed zoning would not conform with the land use plan, which is our comprehensive plan, and the land use plan has subsequently been amended in a manner which would allow the proposed zoning. those are the three instances that they could bring it back within 6 months. But again, that's a denial by the Board of Commissioners. Not again, you're just a recommending body at this point. But as far as answer, I think the question about the motion, can you make a motion to defer? I think you could. My question would be, why are we deferring it? What do you want us to look into, to research, those kind of things?
Environmental study.
Those are the kind of things, I mean, if you're just deferring action not to vote on it, that's one thing. If you're deferring action for specific reasons, we need to know what those reasons are. Or you could just make a motion to deny, you can make a motion to approve. I mean, the floor is open at this point.
Do it at the applicant's request?
If the applicant is specifically requesting a deferral, and he's able to, one of the planning commissioners is willing to make that motion, I think that's appropriate. Again, Josh, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. But again, defer for what reason? I mean, I just don't want to defer something for the sake of pushing off a vote 30 days. You know, I want to know why is it being deferred?
Then I'll make a motion. I would make a motion to defer based on giving the applicant a 6-month extended period of time or less to review and deal with environmental impacts.
I believe he has to be from the prevailing side, and he's not on the prevailing side.
If the applicant were to withdraw, he could reapply next month, could he not?
Yes, he could. If he's asking for something different.
Defer, the applicant could also withdraw and then get more information and reapply. There would be some fees involved, but
that
it wouldn't be the 6 months. Because regardless if we say yes or no, it still goes to county commission.
Correct. Now, if he formally withdraws,
whether yes or no, a deferral doesn't. It comes back here next month, and all these people have to come right back here again to fight it all over again. But a yes or no, either one, it still is alive and still going to the county commission.
If they withdraw the application, we get a letter in our office tomorrow saying we formally withdraw the application. Then I don't think it goes any further. Regardless of what action you take tonight, you could defer it, approve, deny. It really doesn't matter. If it's withdrawn, we don't move it forward from there.
Even though if we have a denied vote here, then it's not a 6-month deal. They've withdrawn their application.
That'd be correct, I think.
Make a motion to deny the request.
Motion to deny.
Mr. Is this on?
Push the mute. Yeah, it's on.
I'm wanting to confirm this last vote of a non-approval to a factual denial of this request. You need 2 of them. I'm giving you another one on the floor.
Right, but I think Mr. Cush had a motion on the floor.
You didn't get a second, and he has to be on the prevailing side, I do believe, orders of Robert's Rules of Order.
Let's get a little bit of order here and stop arguing amongst ourselves as much as we possibly can. And once again, I'm going to apologize because I probably brought all this on, but I think Mike had a motion, and we didn't have a chance to get that motion seconded. Why don't you repeat that, Mike, if you could? Is it possible for us to defer something for 6 months? I thought our rules were 30 days.
Yeah, no, I think the deferral needs to be to a date certain. So I don't think you can defer for 6 months or less, is I think the language you used, at the election of the applicant. A deferral is going to be for a specific time period. So to the next meeting would be typical. You might do 60 days, but, just an... if there's a denial. If there had been a motion to deny this application and we were at the county commission, that's another thing that's getting confusing. You are a recommending body on a rezoning. So when the zoning resolution speaks of a denial and the inability to reapply for a 6-month period, it is talking about a denial at the county commission level, not the planning commission level. So you are only voting to recommend approval, recommend denial, or perhaps defer. That's it. What I have heard happen is a motion to deny was made, seconded, and did not pass. A motion to approve was made, seconded, and did not pass. Then we've got into a discussion, then Mr. Cush made a motion to defer for up to 6 months or maybe less. That's where we got.
Right.
And so,
Is that an appropriate motion?
no, it needs to be to a date certain, so he can defer, he can make a motion to defer it to the next meeting, but not to some unspecified period of time at the election of the applicant. I think you could say 90 days, but to Mr. DeMassi's point, you want to state a basis for it and a rationale supporting the deferral, you know, if there is going to be a deferral.
Well, yes, there is a motion. I have a motion to defer for 90 days. That 90-day period is for the applicant to review the questions and concerns from the community as well as members of the commission, and that would give, I'm asking for 90 days for them to address certain environmental issues that this board and the body behind us have.
That's specific enough?
Yes, I think a 90-day deferral is specific enough.
We have a motion to defer for 90 days. And a second. Any discussion on that motion?
I think we had the grounds to defer something for that long. I mean, that's not only hanging the residents out to dry, that's hanging the applicant out to dry. They don't know what's going on. I mean, 90 days, I mean, what's going to change in the next 90 days?
I'll comment if that's a question. I think the zoning resolution as presently written does not limit. It doesn't say you could not make that motion. We have that issue come up a lot with subdivision plats, and that's because the state law says you must approve or disapprove a subdivision plat within 60 days of submittal, or it is deemed approved. Rezonings are not that way. Your current zoning resolution that just became effective January 1 doesn't specify one way or the other any specific time length for a deferral. Now, you may as a body decide to vote down his motion because you think it's too long, but it's not going to be because of something that's in the zoning resolution.
We have a motion to defer for 90 days and a second. The 90-day period being used to perform environmental test and communicate the results of that test through meetings with the community. Is that correct?
I would not say environmental test because I don't know that you can do that in 90 days, but I would think they would be better equipped in 90 days to address certain environmental issues.
Okay. Other questions? I'm not sure that I'm allowed to editorialize. Tell me if I'm not, Josh, but my concern with deferring is going to be, I'm not sure if, let's say all the environmental impact, everything was done and it was favorable. Are we still going to be in the exact same position 3 months from now, 6 months from now than we are right now, with a whole community, almost a whole community, opposed to this simply for the same particular reasons that we have? I've got a concern that we'll be right back up here in 90 days going through the exact same procedure and process again with the exact same comments and the exact same objections. And that's a concern that I've got with the...
Mr. Chairman, just to cut through all that stuff, I mean, I'm looking at the applicants. Y'all going to send a letter in withdrawing this application so y'all can get everything back in line? If you are, we need to withdraw this. The applicant's asking to withdraw it. They're going to send a letter in tomorrow about withdrawing it. Can we do that, Josh? That way it doesn't mess up the community back there. And what's coming up, is it going to be a surprise attack? Is it coming up to us? They know it's withdrawn. It's going to have to go back through this whole process again. Y'all can wait, or y'all can bring it back whenever you get everything together.
I mean,
If the motion to defer passes, could they withdraw tomorrow?
Yeah.
I don't know of anything that would stop them from deferring.
I believe,
going tomorrow.
yeah, I believe they could.
Okay. Call for the question. Did you call for the question? Doug? Make a note.
Well, as I understand the motion, it's to defer for 90 days to allow the applicant an opportunity to kind of digest all the comments and concerns that were brought up at the meeting today. And Mr. Cush, correct me, that's pretty much the gist of your motion, as I understand it, at least. Thank you.
Motion to defer for 90 days and a second. Any other questions? The question's been called for. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Any opposition? Call the roll.
Rhonda Allen. Jim Averwater. Veronica Buchanan. Will Jordan. Mike Cush. Craig Lynch. Pettis Reed. Steve Sandlin. Mike Vaught. Jeff Phillips.
No.
Motion failed.
Then, Mr. Chairman, I want to make a motion to deny, to confirm the denial of the request.
Josh, can Steve make, in essence, the same motion that he made before?
Yes.
Thank you. We have a motion to deny and a second. Other discussion? Call the roll.
Can I interject something
Please
here?
do, Josh.
We've gone through a lot of discussion, and so we may be assuming what the basis for the motion to deny is, and you probably need to state on the record what your basis for denial is.
Yes, same as before. The environmental study has not been done or accomplished yet. The landfill issues as far as the closure plan, the environmental on it, traffic issues, noise issues, water issues that are unknown, the airborne issues unknown, Saturday hours. I had 4 or 5 on my phone. It wasn't mentioned here tonight, but it was at my home on my answer machine that Saturday should be 12 noon. But anyway, that's Saturday hours. Quarry issues there with sinkholes and all the water issues there associated with it. And then the national park being right next door. I'd really like to hear from them, a letter or somebody in person saying they're absolutely wonderful about this or they don't like it at all, something.
Okay with that, Josh? Okay.
I have a question before we vote. So what does this do to the applicant if this motion passes?
No, if the motion passes and you make a recommendation to deny, unless we get a letter withdrawing the application, this will go to the Board of Commissioners next month with a recommendation from the Planning Commission to deny the application. If it still goes forward, I'm assuming a lot, but if it goes forward and the Board of Commissioners votes to deny the application, the 6 months starts at that time. That's when the 6 months start. Now, if they withdraw their application, they can come back with something else. That 6-month door doesn't apply unless the county commission takes action on it. Okay.
Motion to deny. Call the roll, Gail.
Rhonda Allen. Yes. Jim Averwater. No. Veronica Buchanan. No. Will Jordan. Yes. Mike Cush. No. Craig Lynch. Pettis Reed. Steve Sandlin. Mike Vaught. Jeff Phillips.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion to deny passes. I'm assuming that this will still go before the county commission.
Yes, sir. It will.
And that county commission will also have the opportunity to vote yes or no on this, and that meeting is scheduled for Thursday, May the 16th, 6 p.m. in this courthouse, in this courtroom, along with all the other rezonings that requests that took place tonight.
We do have one issue. We do have one issue remaining to be considered. So if folks leaving could try to do so in a quiet and orderly manner, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
As y'all are exiting, would you please remain as quiet as you can? We still have some business to conduct. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I can just briefly discuss the last item that we have.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The final item we have is as you recall, we had a discussion on this at our last day meeting, our glitch ordinance. It's as we presented it originally. I'm not going to go into all the different amendments. There's several pages of it here, unless you just have specific questions. Since this is initiated by planning staff to make these changes to the document, it does require a public hearing, and it does require action by the Board of Commissioners at another public hearing in May with the other issues that we discussed tonight. But unless there's specific questions, Mr. Chairman, I would just recommend we open it for a public hearing and move forward with it.
Glitch ordinance was discussed at our 9 o'clock meeting, and I think you have a copy of the suggested changes on your agenda packet.
Doug, I have one question. If this passes here and then it passes at the full board in May,
yes,
does it become effective as of that date, or
yes,
what date is it effective?
It'd be pretty much effective that day. The next day when we start business, these changes will be in effect.
Any other questions? If not, I'll declare a public hearing open on changing the glitch ordinance for our comprehensive plan. Anyone here wishing to speak concerning this ordinance, please come forward. Seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed, and now we're open for a motion. Have a motion to approve and a second. Any other discussion? I'm sorry.
I didn't get those words. And who was it?
Any other discussion? All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Any opposition? That motion carries. Staff.
Just two brief items, Mr. Chairman. First, there was a couple of handouts at your tables today regarding the Cumberland Region Tomorrow Summit, the Power of 10 Summit that they have every year. It's coming up on May the 1st. It's a Wednesday, I believe, from 1 to 6 p.m. I know some of you have gone in the past. There's a very good-looking agenda with this year. One of the speakers are having come is Mr. Mitchell Silver. He's the planning director. I believe it's in the Raleigh-Durham area in North Carolina. A very well-spoken person, very dynamic speaker. I've heard him speak at some other avenues before. He's very worth listening to. I would highly encourage you to go. Public officials are able to get in free of charge, and they do count toward your 4 hours of annual training. So basically, if you're able to go to that and stay for the entire agenda, you'll have your annual training for the year. So if you need me to sign you up, just let me know, but there's instructions on there how to do it. It's pretty simple on the internet. It's all web-based. So we go online? Yes, you can go online. I think there's a public sector, private sector. You take the public sector since you're representing the Planning Commission. The other item, just talking about the battlefield, I mentioned earlier that I met with the battlefield, the new superintendent and her assistant there. You'll have to forgive me. Her name's escaping me at the moment. I'm tired. But it was a very good meeting. We had a lot of good discussion. She also, and what she basically asked us to consider is that we talk about possibly going to the battlefield. They can kind of give us a tour of things that are going on and kind of the issues that they have going on that they think you'd probably find of interest. I think it's a very good idea. I think it's something that we should go ahead and coordinate. I'll go ahead and start working in that direction with her about coordinating a time and place. We could all meet out there. Chances are we'd have to advertise it as some sort of a meeting since you would all be meeting there. But I just wanted to make sure that you had no objections to that before I start moving in that direction. Well, basically to, kind of let us know some of the issues that are going on with their programs and growth things that they're doing that may affect how you're doing, the job on the Planning Commission. Just things to consider. Like that. It should be a pretty interesting meeting. So if you have no objections, I'll move in that direction. And that's all I have. So.
This regional summit, I think that's on a Wednesday afternoon and evening. We kind of give it some thought, I believe, and our next meeting is scheduled for the 22nd. I believe that's right, at 9 a.m. And if there's several of us that want to go, could we let you know then and get in?
Yeah, I'll double check. I'm not sure when the cutoff is for sign up, but I can look at that and send you an email tomorrow just to let you know when that is. I think it's not for a few more weeks.
That way we could possibly carpool, several of us that wanted to go.
No, you can't. I think what he was suggesting was right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Any other business? Thank you for all of your participation and your patience, especially with the chair tonight. I appreciate your lingering smiles. Thank you. And with that, we're adjourned.